this meeting to order. We have all the commissioners here tonight, so we have everyone. Our invocation and our flag salute will be by Commissioner Norwood and Commissioner Stallings. So,
would you please stand and pray with me? Lord Jesus, we thank you for blessing us to be here this evening. Lord, we thank you for everything you've done for us. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and your mercy. And Father, we just pray that you would touch the families of those who lost their loved ones. Lord, we just pray that you touch this nation, touch every heart, every mind and soul. Help us to realize that we all belong to you. And we're all made after your own image and your likeness. And Lord, you put us here to love one another, to embrace one another, to help one another, to respect one another as your children. And Lord, we just thank you for this meeting this evening here in the council chambers. We pray that you come in the spirit of peace and love and bless us to be great stewards over the things that you have chosen us to be a part of, to help lead and guide this city. And Lord, we thank you for all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
on item number 3.1, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2023-2024 City of Enid budget. And we'll pull up item number A1-23-142, please. Do any of the commissioners have any comments on that?
No.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Gilbert and Mayor. Aaron is out this week, so I'll be doing the budget presentations for the rest of the week. And this evening, we will be doing the list of 8 funds identified in blue, which is airport, golf, police group funds, and our event center, fire, and Enid Economic Development Authority. So we have all the sections on all sections of the agenda tonight to allow flexibility for you to revisit any area that's already been discussed and or make motions for any changes that you feel, so you do not have to wait until the very last night to make any discussions or anything like that. So the first thing that we'll discuss is library. It's my understanding there was a question about more information. So this is our library on page 73. This breaks it down into our categories, our expense categories: personnel services, contractual, and our maintenance and operations. And the color coding should be exactly how it was for the things that Aaron brought to you last Monday. But the blue is our adjusted budget for this fiscal year. Our projection is in the red of what we show to be expending by the end of this fiscal. And then, of course, our green is what we're proposing for next year's budget. So I will let Teresa Ray is here to discuss any, or if you have any questions.
I'll go ahead and jump in first on the library. I know there was a question specifically about the number of personnel that we have, and I'm happy to answer that. We have, gosh, I'll look at my cheat sheet here. This goes back 5 years to the 2018-19 year. We've currently got 11 full-time employees, 8 part-time employees, or at least budget allocations for 11 full-time, 8 part-time, and 2 seasonal. That is the same in this draft budget for the new year as it is in the current year. Previously, since 18 and 19, we did have 12 full-time employees, and in 18-19 we had fewer part-timers. We had 5 part-timers, 2 seasonals, and then that increased to 12 and 6 part-timers, and it stayed that way until this current year we're in. In this current year, we had reduced one full-time position and replaced it with two
Two part-time.
positions. So I think that when Erin was here and was talking about the personnel in the general fund budget, what I heard her say was there was a net increase of 1 in the general fund, and that came from the park department, where there were 2 positions that we had added, and we had reduced 1 position, I think it was in fleet management. And so that's where the net 1 came from. But I wanted it to be clear that the budget allocation for personnel in this budget is the same as it was last year, and it's actually less than it has been, at least going back to 18, 19, in terms of numbers of personnel. In dollars, it has changed, so I thought I would just pass out real quickly for you guys to take a look at. There's some worksheets. I guess I did assume all that right.
Done.
This sheet may be helpful for you to take a look at today and for contemplation as we move towards hopefully approving the budget next Tuesday. This gives you some very good information back to 2018-19, so you really got about 6 years of info. 2018-19 is labeled at the top. It's the same breakdown as the budget book with personnel services, contractual services, maintenance and ops. If you go down, you see the actual budget number at the bottom.
Did somebody get an extra one of those?
Oh, I'm sorry,
No. Oh, you have 2?
I got 2.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So hopefully everybody has a copy now. If not, we'll get some more. But the budget number in 18-19 was 909,215. You will see that the actual results at the end of the year was 907,692. So they came under budget by about $2,000. In 19-20, the budget did go up, whatever percentage that is, to 956,340. You can see with the line items inside of those functional areas where changes have happened. But 956,340, that year they actually finished at 882,187. The next year the budget actually decreased, 918,575. The actual numbers that came in was 797,571. In the current, well, no, this is the year before this one. The budget was 959,625. The library finished at 875,755. And the current year that we're in, the budget was $1,069,230. Again, when we compare budgets to budgets, that's an increase from 959, which is, it's a smaller percentage than what is in the current budget book, because as Jennifer will show you in a minute, in the current comparisons in that front part of the budget book, we compare actuals from the year that's completed prior. We show the annual or the original budget in the current year, and then we show the projected budget in the next column. The projected budget at this time is $1,135,000. Just looking at the numbers quickly, you can see what's changed. Personnel has gone up rather, you could say significantly. I don't know what that percentage is. The actual that we finished in 21-22 was about $600,000. That was based on a budget of $686. The budget went to $778 in the current year. We spent $710. What I'd like you to note is that we did, in an effort to retain employees and recruit employees and be competitive, we gave significant increases to our ASME employees, really to all of our employees. The majority of employees at the library are ASME employees, and so they benefited from that, and they also benefited this current year. So, the current year that we're in, and the second year of the agreement is the year that's coming up that we're contemplating. So, from my perspective, the library has been good stewards of their money for at least the last 5 years. We spent less than was budgeted, and we actually reduced a position in the past. And so I provide this information to help you analyze it and think about it. And if you have questions now, we'll try to answer them. And I know Terry's here to give you some information on books and what we order and how we order. And so, but first, are there questions that you have right now? Any of these numbers?
I've got just a couple. I talked to Gerald yesterday. He answered most of those for me, but over on page 75 where it talks about donation expenditures, and I think I heard you talk yesterday at the meeting on this. This is money that you take in from donations and then you give back out.
Correct,
Is that right? So
Correct.
that's not coming out of your budget.
correct.
Okay. Then,
Let me just
well,
clarify to be correct.
yeah.
Yes, it does come out of the budget, but in the general fund, the departments, we don't show the revenues. We show that in the fund. There's about 22 departments in the general fund. So what you don't see, which is what she's saying, is the donation revenues that come in, you bring over in daily deposits, we track them. And
Yes.
do you want to elaborate on how that works? please?
Well, just when the donations come in, most of the donations that come in for general fund are for library, but we do have that many departments. And then if we don't get any donations during that year, there will be nothing spent in her department for those specific donations.
okay.
So we only spend the donation money if we actually receive it, which has been several years now. She does receive several thousand each year historically, so she does spend. And that is budgeted on her expense line.
Another question I had, I noticed in the part-time positions that there was one custodian. And then whenever I go over to the professional services, I see where that's, janitorial's listed again.
If our custodian is on vacation, we contract with someone to come in and fill that role. We also do then sometimes contract for extra custodial things like cleaning all of the windows.
Windows.
That's a huge job and is costly, and that would fall under janitorial services.
Okay, okay. Then my last question, and I'll let anybody else. When I go through and I look at books, manuals, materials, 65,000, and public periodicals, 22,500, divide that by 12, that's about $7,292 a month. And I know you're about to talk about how you purchase books, why you select certain ones, but will you just talk about that $7,300 basically? And seems like a lot of money to me.
It does seem like a lot of money until you start to think about the price of books, because we don't buy paperbacks like you get at Walmart. We buy library bound, or we buy books that then we have to bind so that we're covering them so that they last longer. Our books circulate, some of them many, many times before they get destroyed and have to be pulled out of circulation. So library books tend to be more expensive than regular books. We purchase, in the last year, we've purchased 3,031 books so far. And that, if you're looking at your personal collection, that sounds like a lot. But we also have 42,000 registered patrons. So if you divide those 3,000 books between those 42,000 patrons, that's not very many books each. So we're buying books for the entire county.
And to be clear, that's the entire county that doesn't contribute any money to the library too.
That's, yeah, the money comes from,
Because the city's the only
Right.
one that contributes a dime to that.
and we do get some state aid, but that
No,
comes
I
from
understand
the
that.
Oklahoma Department of Libraries. So yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay, that's all I had.
Took mine. I was going to just ask you as to how much money that we get from Garfield County that pays for our library, so that they don't have to have a library in any other municipality in the county.
The county doesn't contribute this.
Okay.
But they have a seat on the board.
That's correct.
And they also have their name on the front of the building.
That's correct.
And the reason for that is
I
because
believe
state
there was something historically, this is well before me, that there was a partnership, had something to do with the land that the library is on, and then there was some money, and then there wasn't some money, but it has to do with the land or something. I'm sure Carol has more information about that. She was involved.
Well, no,
Or-
I wasn't involved. As it happened, I was
Well,
only
you've been here for
about
so
5.
long, Carol, you
I'm not
might
that
know.
old, but the county provided the land for us. And we have the land as long as it is the library. And part of that was that it would be open for all of the people in the county.
Sort of like we provided the land for the county jail.
A lot like that.
A lot like it,
Okay,
yes,
just making sure.
absolutely.
On the advertising for the library, we've got a budget of 5,000, but the closest we come to that is 2713. What is the purpose of that increase for advertising for the library?
Terry, do you want to answer that?
We're looking to expand the advertising. We have started doing things like advertising on the city buses. And we're looking to run articles or ads in things like E-Town, in the newspaper, just to make sure that citizens know about the activities that are happening at the library.
Sure. Do you have any way to track if you see a spike in attendance after an advertising push, or?
We haven't done that so far, but that would be interesting stats to check.
Can we do that for the future?
We can do that for the future. I like the data. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody? Did you want to talk about how you do your book selection, or?
If you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk about that. We have a few popular authors that are on auto ship. As soon as they publish a book, it gets sent to us. Other than that, we are checking what's new, what is popular. We cross-reference things in our collection to make sure that we don't overload one section or another. We also check what is popular. For example, Westerns are very popular, so we keep buying Westerns. Large print books are extremely popular and extremely expensive, but we keep buying those because that's important. So we're looking at what's new, what's trending, what is being circulated in our library, because that tells us what people in our community are interested in. We also get patron requests where people will ask us to purchase a certain book. When we get those, we go through a very similar process of, is this something that we think would check out on a regular basis? Are there multiple people asking for something like this? If it's not something that looks like a lot of people are going to be interested in, then we will try to ILL it, which means it's interlibrary loan. We'll borrow it from another library. But we do purchase several patron requests.
Okay.
On that, I do have a question. How long do you keep your historical books? You know, because you have a point of circulation where you get rid of some and purchase new ones. As far as your historical volume of books, how long do you all keep those?
Are you talking about if it hasn't checked out or if it is historically significant?
Significant.
We have the Mark West James room, so the ones that are historically significant, especially things that are historically significant to our area or Oklahoma, we keep those indefinitely.
Okay.
And we're working to curate that. We've actually, one of those part-time positions is a historian, and I'm very excited about her work in the Mark West James room.
And on some of those books, they can't leave the library?
That is correct.
Okay.
I mean, especially if they're really old and cannot be replaced, then we don't want them to leave our library because that's one of the ways that books get lost.
Yeah, plus that adds value to the library.
That's right.
What do we do about the ones that aren't being checked out and forever and everything else? Are we just leaving them on the shelf?
If they haven't-
Finding somewhere that they can go and we can make something off of it so we can get new
Yep.
material?
Yep. If they haven't been checked out in 5 years, then we do what we call weeding, which is removing them from the collection. Most often, if they're in good shape, they go to the Friends of the Library book sale. Then the Friends of the Library sell them, and then the Friends do things to help the library. If they cannot be sold, say they're in really terrible condition, falling apart, pages are missing, disgusting and gross, nobody wants them, then we recycle them.
Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you
That's
very
all I've
much.
got. Thank you, Terry. Thank you.
Pick back up into this.
Yeah. Yes.
Now we'll move on to airport, which is page 88. We have a large difference from this fiscal year. That's all due to, the majority of that is due to the grants that were budgeted for this fiscal year. There's some large projects that are going on and actually are getting ready to start, which Keston Cook, our airport director, is here to discuss those things. But that's the biggest difference is we don't, those were budgeted this year. They're already encumbered. The encumbrances will roll to next year, and so the expenses will be based on the encumbrances that we roll from this year. The revenue, we will probably not get until next year, so the revenue will probably be much higher than what we actually budgeted, but we always project that we get the revenue the same year as the expense. So that's why we didn't budget for that revenue for next year. Another reason that we have some differences is Vance runway closing, getting ready to start, and we always get a lot more traffic when that happens, so our jet sales are much, much higher when they do a closing. And that would increase on the revenue side, and we show an increase on the expense side, which is our cost of goods sold. And the other differences are very small, comparably speaking. So I will let Keston come up here and discuss and answer any questions that you have.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. She pretty much covered all the number side there, but yes, Vance Air Force Base does currently have their runway shut down now, so we are already seeing that traffic. And it is about, from the short time period that has been going on and not counting weather days, you're looking at about a 3,300 gallon increase. To compare, we average right around 1,300 gallons a day if we don't have that traffic on. So it's, you know, a little over double, almost triple. So that's what you'll see on the.
How long will that runway be?
They tell me 15 months is what they're projecting. Of course, it always goes over. I think not last year, but a couple years ago when they had their much shorter runway, or not much shorter, much shorter construction project with the shutdown, it was supposed to be 3 months. It went 4.5 months. If you give the same type, it'll probably be closer to 18 months or longer.
Keston, how did we fare on that last shutdown as far as our revenue?
Yeah, so they did have more T1s at that time. So right now they are looking at phasing out T1s. So then they had 11 to 12 T1s based out of the Woodring Airport. Now they have 8 with 1 spare. If they fly all 8 a day, they go between 500 and 600 gallons per day per aircraft. We were selling 5,000 gallons then. We're selling roughly 4,000 gallons now. But the profit margin on them is a little over $1 and some change. You look at 300,000 gallons last time. This time you're looking at potentially 400,000 more. It could be quite a bit.
Thank you.
Keston, would you just run down for the benefit of all of us, all your capital projects, I think, some of them are already in the
Absolutely.
current year budget, some of them we're going to add later, but would you just go over, there's a lot of construction going on out there getting ready to.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have 5 total projects. Really, they can be shortened into 3. We have currently ongoing our crosswind runway construction, so runway 1331. It was a full tear out and replace. It was originally a 3,150 foot by 108 foot asphalt runway. It has been completely torn out. It is now concrete. It's still 3,150 feet, but now it is only 75 feet wide. It is a more standard dimension on the width. 108 was an oddball number that just came about probably during the war or something like that. I have no idea where that number came from. So we decided as a cost-saving effort to narrow that to a standard 75 width. That is about 78%, 80% complete as the last weekly inspection report that we got. So they have about 15 working days left to complete it, depending on how the weather goes. You could see that, you know, if it doesn't rain this week or next week, you could see it done by the end of next week. If it does rain, the kind of work that they have left to do is they're widening and then sealing the joints of the concrete. Of course, if it rains quite a bit, those joints take a long time to dry out, and so they have to be completely dry before they can put that sealant in them. The second crosswind runway project that we have is after they finish that construction and the painting and all that good stuff, it'll open up for about a month as we wait for the lighting to be delivered to us. Around the August timeframe, we'll close it back down again. We'll put LED pilot controlled lighting on it. We'll put what are called PAPIs, they're precision approach path indicator lightings. Basically, as you come in, you're flying into the airport. If you're too high, you'll get, different color lights than you'll get if you're too low. Basically a way for pilots as they're coming in to know whether or not they're on the glide slope to land safely. So that'll be installed in the August timeframe. It's a much shorter contract. It'll be done probably within a month of when they start actually getting work on the ground done. Then you have what we commonly refer to as the DSIP projects, Defense Community Infrastructure Program Grant projects. There's 3 projects in total in that group, and it is the new joint use hangar, a south ramp reconstruction, and south ramp hangars. You can really group the south ramp reconstruction and the south ramp hangars into one project. It'll be roughly a year-long project. It's a 300 working day contract, $4.5 million, paid through 3 different grants. You have the DSIP, Defense Community Infrastructure Program Grant. You have an OAC, an Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission grant, hangar grant for the joint use hangar. And then we have a ODFA, Oklahoma Department of Finance Authority, I believe is what it stands for, P3, Public-Private Partnership Grant. That'll cover pretty much 100% of the construction costs of those projects. So South Ramp, we'll be tearing out all the pavement that is on the South Ramp. It is predominantly our military ramp. Our 90% of the traffic that we park down there is military, and it is probably the ramp that's in the roughest shape. If you go down there, you'll see kind of like over-cracked tar ceiling, which is non-standard for an airport, and it looks really rough. So we'll take this opportunity to tear all that out, put brand new pavement. The other thing that'll alleviate is back when that concrete was placed, it was not placed with the intention of hangars being put on it. So if it rains, all the rain slopes towards the hangars that are currently on there to the drainage that is behind the hangars. Of course, that leads to problems when water hits those hangars and has nowhere to go but inside. And so they are the least desirable hangars on the least desirable pavement on the airport. So we have already started the process of ripping those hangars out. We'll be replacing them with 8 brand new conjoined box hangars with automatic bifold doors. And they are 48 by 40 on the square footage, so they are a larger sized hangar, a size that we don't currently have to try and capture traffic for light twin aircraft. And so currently, if we have a light twin aircraft on our airport, we have a few 60 by 60 square foot hangars that we can put them in, but for light twins, that square footage is well above and beyond what they require. So they're paying quite a bit more money for space that they don't need. This size of hangar will capture that type of traffic and help us bring in those types of planes to base out of Woodring Airport. Then we finally have the joint use hangar, the new joint use hangar. We have one out there, it's 120 foot by 120 foot. This will be pretty much a carbon copy of that. You just place it exactly the same copy to the southeast of where the current one is. The only main difference will be that it'll have one overhead door instead of 2. It'll also include fire suppression and heating. But I stand for any questions about any of those projects.
On the cross runways, how many municipalities have a cross runway like we do?
Very few. So
In the state of Oklahoma, I mean. Yes.
yeah, very few in the state of Oklahoma. You really have the major ones like Tulsa and OKC. Ardmore, I believe, has one, and Guyman or Weatherford, I believe, has one. But of those, that's about all I know. It's pretty rare for crosswind runways. Really, in the section that we are at in the state, the reason we got ours is because if there is a weather front that moves through and you get those strong westerly winds that tend to happen with those weather fronts, if you're a plane that is over or near Enid and one comes through and we did not have a crosswind runway, you'd have to go quite far for one. Probably, I think Stillwater has one as well, and that would be your best bet, but that can be quite a trip if you're in a small general aviation plane, and if you're low on gas, then Stillwater might not be an option.
Are we equipped, say, if a commercial liner had an emergency landing, are we equipped to be able to accommodate them?
So it depends on the size of the aircraft. We do have a runway that is built for small commercial jets. So you think of your ERJs, the types that will be flying out of like OKC or Tulsa. We can absolutely handle one of those. In fact, when we built the original joint use hangar, that was the type of aircraft that hangar was built for. It was of a size and height that we could pull an ERJ 145 into that hangar if we needed to. So in the case of emergency, of course, if there were bigger aircraft, if you had a Boeing, the FAA and all of them, the air traffic control, they're gonna route that plane to wherever is safe. Even if that means the destruction of a runway, they'll destroy a runway and they'll come back and replace it after the fact at the FAA's expense. But predominantly what they're looking for at that point is saving lives. So it could happen of a heavier aircraft, but that is not what we're built for.
What is your capacity on your private hangars?
So we have roughly 100 hangars out at the airport. Of those, about 80 are city-owned, roughly 20 are private-owned. We're pretty much at capacity right now. There's no hangars. We have about, I think we were looking today, we had a couple people call, 23, 24 people on a wait list for a hangar.
We're getting 16 new ones, is that right?
So 8 currently, we have plans with Park Hill, our airport consultant engineers. We do have plans with them already to replace that back 8 to get 8 new ones on the back row as well.
What's the payout on one of those? I mean, if we were to,
It's not very good, unfortunately. So the FAA mandates that the hangar rentals for general aviation be low as to not be a barrier of entry or barrier to entry of general aviation. So we're looking, our hangars range anywhere from $150 per month for the small T hangars, large box hangars $600 per month. When the 8 that we're building on the south ramp will probably charge somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 per month. And we're paying, I think it's 1.5 million to build 8. So it takes a long time to get your return on interest. And that's, we're right in the middle of the road, maybe a tad low or maybe a tad high on the type, surrounding airports, what they charge for rent. So we're pretty comparable.
Guessing on non-military fuel,
Mhm.
how are we doing on there, on our revenues?
We're doing really well. So we calculate our fuel price with every fuel load, especially this time of year with the military traffic. We're getting in multiple fuel loads a day, so we update our fuel price multiple times per week. In a standard, when we're not dealing with military runway shutdown, we're looking at 1 to 2 fuel loads per week. So we update our fuel price pretty often, especially for airports around us. So we're able to stay on top of what the actual fuel price is, average nationwide. That helps us, it can be a helpful thing or a harmful thing depending on what the trend of oil prices are. One of the things that we try to do at the airport is we go for a quantity over quantity sale. So our fuel price is lower than some of the surrounding airports. That helps draw in traffic into our airport and get the fuel sales. The way that we've always historically looked at the fuel at our airport is it doesn't make us any money sitting in our fuel tank. So it is better for us to sell it a little bit cheaper than surrounding airports to draw in that traffic and get the money on it and sell it out. If you look at our historical fuel sales, quantity sales, not the dollar amount necessarily, probably about 5 years ago, we were averaging 300,000 gallons of fuel sales per year. Right now, we're averaging closer to 500,000.
On the military fuel sales, we do that through a defense
Yes.
logistics contract, and
Yeah.
I think we're in the process of
So-
reworking that, or?
Yeah, we just got a new military fuel contract. It's a once every 5-year thing. We just got ours assigned to us again for the next 5 years. And so our prices went up a little bit on the military fuel contract, just as you'd expect over 5 years. There's going to be increased prices to sell fuel.
I just want to say one other thing on that crosswind runway. I think you had told me, you guys remember Grayson Arties, who came here as the head of OAC. Wasn't that the last grant that the OAC is going to give for a crosswind runway?
Last grant that the OAC and the FAA both combined will probably ever do a crosswind. So the FAA is moving away from crosswind runways. I don't know why. I haven't really even heard a good answer from the FAA. Probably just the cost of maintaining new concrete. And so, yeah, this will probably be the last major crosswind runway that you'll see in development potentially nationwide. It was one of the last FAA grants nationwide that they issued towards a crosswind runway. In fact, Tulsa International tried to get a crosswind runway funded and FAA denied them.
There's a lot of great things happening in Enid. A ton of things happening at Woodring. We're going to have a groundbreaking coming up in the near future for the
Yes.
joint use hangar?
Yeah, so as soon as we get the notice to proceed from the OLDC, the Office of Local Defense Community and Cooperation, who manages the DSIP grants, so as soon as we get the notice to proceed from that, we'll be looking at having groundbreaking shortly after that.
The restaurant falls in your purview also?
So the lease of the restaurant area does. We do not operate the restaurant itself, we just contract that out.
Okay.
And we currently have a 3-year agreement? Are we in year 1 of a 3-year agreement?
I think we're year 1 in the 3-year agreement that we have with them.
Mary, can you share what your favorite pie from there is?
Oh, I love it up there. Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. Keston, you and Mason back there are doing a great job out at the airport. And I make it out there at least once a week, and these guys are doing a nice job. And I hope you're getting what you need from us. I've been out there a couple times, and it's that season, but, you know, the weeds are growing out there. And I'll say the same thing about the airport as I did about Highway 81 and 412. Those are the gateways to our city, and they need to look nice. And I know that we've got some landscaping problems. I've been in touch with a couple of the airport advisory board members, and they're concerned about the way that looks out there in front of the terminal. So hopefully we can get you what you need to get that fixed up. On another note, hopefully maybe in a future session, we do have some old military equipment out there that's been placed out there. Some of it's on the grass, and it just doesn't look good. And I think maybe at some point we need to come up with a plan to get some concrete out there or some kind of display surface to get those helicopters and those old Army trucks and whatever else we have out there. We've got a nice display in that Vietnam Wall, and I think we need to keep that whole area looking sharp. It not only in honor to our veterans, but the military in general. And we can get that cleaned up, but I think that needs to be a priority here in the near future.
Yeah, I will say on the military equipment, absolutely. The Woodring Wall of Honor takes care of that, but they need our assistance. They've gotten some new equipment. I don't know if this is related to the stuff they got from the museum in Kansas or
Believe so,
not.
yes.
So yes, we will work with Elaine Johns, who's the director out there, to see what we can do on that. And then those front beds, you know, the problem with flower beds, dadgummit, is maintenance. So I think some pretty flowers in there or whatever you can get looking good would be great.
Yeah, we have had a florist or a landscape person come out and is supposed to give us multiple options, I think we've asked for an array of options. One, more rock type stuff. We've asked for just plain flowers type stuff that you would see. We've asked for just what would it cost to do grass. We've asked, you know, for shrubs and stuff. So we have an array of options that he's going to be proposing to us and see what the cost is for all of those.
Sounds like you may need some sprinkler work out there too to keep things looking good.
Yes,
Yeah, just let us know.
absolutely, we'll do,
Thanks,
sir.
Keston.
Any other questions? If not, thank you. That was very informative.
Absolutely. Thank
Appreciate
you very much, sir. You guys take care.
Now we're gonna move to our Meadow Lake Golf Course, page 94. And it'll be a similar situation. I'll give you some rough numbers, and then Michael will come up and let you ask him questions, and he gets to talk about the good things. So again, we're on page 94. As you can see, the revenue coming in projected for this year is doing really well, which I know that he'll talk about that also. We do not have much difference from this fiscal year to next. Few increases, personnel, you know, they've already talked about that. And then the biggest difference would be the snack bar operation. That changed, so now we do not have the larger revenue and larger expense. That is now being leased out by an individual, and they pay a monthly rent. So that's the biggest difference. We did increase, the projections for revenues looked good, and they have been coming in for several years, so we did put some increases in for that. So unless you have questions for me on numbers, then I will let Michael come up.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. and Mrs. Commissioners. Yeah, the revenue is kind of the good point of what I wanted to talk to you about. Golf has kind of seen a resurgence in the last several years, and we're no different. I think one of the points we want to do is be welcoming. We're a quality of life point for the city. We want to be a positive point, and people talk positively about Meadow Lake Golf Course, and that's what I want to promote. So I really just wanted to talk about the revenues. Not really much has changed in expenditures. We run pretty lean on staff. We have 5 full-time employees, and that's taking care of 120 acres and running the golf shop. So that's not a lot of full-time. We staff up with a lot of seasonal and part-time, and sometimes that's tough to do. So occasionally we have to dip in and use professional services, has a little bit in there, and that is some of that comes from our temp staff. We have to use a staffing agency when we can't find employees for seasonal and part-time jobs, and we really need them. So anybody have any questions about anything? She went over the snack bar. Whenever the alcohol laws changed, the city is not able to get an ABLE license, so we can't operate the snack bar because we can't really have a golf course and not be able to serve beer. So it's in Rhonda Robinette will be in her 2nd year of running the snack bar, and things seem to be going pretty smoothly there.
What do you need to make it better?
Irrigation system. Honestly, that's kind of the biggest. We I think about 100 water leaks we fixed last year, and it's just old PVC pipe. We talked about it. I think I came to you a couple months ago, and maybe we can put a phased plan in. I know we're kind of lean on capital funds for the next year or two, but hopefully in the near future, that's something that really needs to happen. We had an irrigation system.
Okay.
We have a design, we have cost estimates, we've done that legwork, and we have, so right now we have single row spacing irrigation, so it runs right down the middle with 1 row of heads. Greens are irrigated, full circles, so if you get off the fairway or even on the edges of the fairway, your coverage is not very good. This last year, we had a drought, everybody's aware of. The turf had no growth growing into the fall, it went dormant with no coverage. Then I was talking to Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mason yesterday about this. We had an early freeze, December 22nd. We hit 0 degrees. We had the driving north wind. You guys probably remember that. It lasted for 3 or 4 days, very cold. The turf and then you get cart traffic. That's another thing we have is, your lawns, trying to manage it. Just imagine having 30,000 rounds of golf with golf cart traffic, foot traffic. That wears your turf out. So you don't have your good irrigation coverage. You get that. Combined with that early freeze, the Bermuda grass wasn't hardened off and dormant yet, so it took it really tough, and that's why you see a lot of turf struggling coming out this spring. It's been one of the worst years I've ever seen for winter kill for grasses. Zoysia grasses it's a warm season plant that does much better than Bermuda. It got killed. Oakwood Country Club, you can see all their collars are dead. That's Zoysia. It just didn't take it. It was too early of a freeze, and everything wasn't dormant. That's the tough part about Oklahoma is we're in the transition zone for turf grass, and we say it's equally tough to grow cool season and warm season grass, so it's kind of just picture poison. Our bent grass greens are cool season, so they did really well. They're in really good shape, and that's what we focus mainly on is our greens. If your greens are putting well, you're gonna have customers come. So we're looking at options to get some of our fairways in good shape. In the next month or so, we're looking at maybe some sprigging. That's kind of the best option because sod is very expensive, and it's also tough to come by because courses throughout the area are dealing with the same issues. But that's kind of my big capital project for the future is our irrigation system. And that would go from a PVC system, which we have currently that's been in the ground since the 80s, to an HDPE, a high-density polyethylene pipe that will not have leaks nearly like PVC does. And there's been a number of courses just in our area that have switched over in the last couple of years because that HDPE pipe is such a good option now.
Have you talked to an irrigation contractor about how we could phase it in a couple of years so it would result, because what we're talking about is, what, $1 million or so to?
1.8 was the last.
So we're gonna have to do some sort of phasing, and
Yes.
if you could get a plan together, that would be helpful.
Right.
And
So
I
we
know
presented
you've got a group out there that.
right. EC Design out of Iowa is our irrigation consultant, and he had said pump station and then 9 holes and 9 holes and phase it over 3 years would be the best strategy. If you go any shorter than that, your contractors aren't going to want to bid them, and they're going to take the price way up.
Well, there's a lot of people are touched by that golf course, you know, and it's a great golf course. It just needs a little TLC and a little more water.
Well, last year, I will say, we hosted 2 college golf tournaments. So these are teams that are coming in from out of state. We've hosted the 6A boys regionals for 6 years straight. We host a number of fundraisers, probably 30 to 40 fundraisers a year at least, that benefit organizations, nonprofits in the community. We have seniors that come out, and that's their quality of life. That's their exercise. They come out and they walk, or even if you ride in a cart, you still get your steps in, and that's their happiness. So we have, and junior golf has exploded too. I volunteer and helped coach a middle school golf team at Chisholm, and we had 30 kids out, and our junior golf is going really strong. We had to change it into 2 different months because last year we had to turn kids away because we didn't have the room. So it's Meadow Lake is really important, I think, to the city of Enid, and I hope we keep funding it.
That irrigation system, is it run off of wells or is it city water?
It is off city water, potable water. I wish there was an alternative, and maybe we can come up with something in the future. We have drilled some test wells. We were getting 5 gallons a minute, and obviously that's not enough to irrigate what we need.
How deep did you go to get?
This would have been 7, 8 years ago when we did. He went. I would have to look and see for sure.
Okay.
The aquifer in this around Enid is fairly shallow. It's not a deep bedded aquifer. 40, 50 feet is about as deep as you're going to go before you hit a impermeable shale or that doesn't give up any water at all. And that's one of the problems. And when this town was early on, all the water for the town came from wells around town here, but those wells won't produce very much water today. So, but I think he's right on. I think we need to work a plan where we can, over some period of time, help the golf course. And what's the tell me again the able problem, because if you're gonna have a golf course, you need to have beer. People are gonna drink beer.
Whenever they changed the alcohol laws from low point beer to everything being liquor,
Yeah.
Municipalities are not allowed to possess an able
Well,
license.
maybe we can't have beer.
More complicated. The problem is because of us being a prohibition state for so long. Okay, so in our Constitution, it says you can't. The state legislature grandfathered, or I guess made an exception for the state parks, but they forgot about us. Now, they have said that we could do it under the Enid Municipal Authority. So part of it is that at the beginning, there had not been that decision that we could do it under a municipal authority. And so we had already contracted out, because there was a period of like a year and a half where all the cities are not sure whether we could do it or not. So we had already going to a contract situation. But it is more available now. It would have to be an EMA thing and not the golf course, and that's complicated, but it's possible. And it's just, I believe that the state of Oklahoma forgot that there was this specific provision. Here's the issue. If we would still be able to do it if we hadn't done away with low point beer, because low point beer was not included.
Wasn't beer.
It was, exactly. So,
I just got one question that we, maybe, according to our finance, cost efficiency, it's more efficient now with somebody else running it than it has been in the past, because we were not making the revenue like we were. And this is a guaranteed once a month revenue of rent that somebody else is running.
Well, we do, doesn't Robin Robinette
Rhonda, yes.
Rhonda, she sells alcohol, right?
Yes, yes.
She has a license, so it's
Yeah.
not like alcohol is not available.
Right.
We get, I believe, a percentage of proceeds in the what does the contract say we
It's
get?
300 a month.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Kind
well,
of similar
300
to
a
the
month.
airport.
But we do supply the needs of golfers to have alcohol.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So,
But did we give up 90,000 on the snack bar on revenue?
But we also gave up 90,000 in
On expense.
expense.
Expenses.
So-
That's what I'm saying. Expense-wise, it was costing us to run it.
It was
Whereas now
just
we're
about the
making-
same, so, this is definitely, easier for the benefit of, she has the license directly there and she's running that, then, prior, the golf pro that ran the snack bar, he owned this and did the snack bar and the pro shop and all of that stuff. So when that changed, and then shortly after that, the Able Commission thing changed, and so then we've phased things differently.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it works out better this way. It's really a tough thing to staff. That's very seasonal too, and if you don't have whenever it was me in charge of it, I was having to go back there and cook burgers, and I don't, it's
Sorry
not
to
really
bring it
ideal.
up.
city doesn't want to run
I
the
want
snack bar.
irrigation.
That's what I'm hearing.
Correct.
How much money are we projected to save by contracting the snack bar out?
It was about a wash, so it's really about the same. I think we were maybe losing a little bit, so we're going to save. We're getting that 300 a month, so I would say we're saving maybe 5,000 to 10,000 at most.
All right. Sounds like that's our irrigation system.
Towards our-
I
Well,
would.
let me just jump in on irrigation. We certainly agree. Michael's been diligent. The estimate that I remember seeing is over $2 million with the pump station. We did try to get the pump station in. I think we took it out at the final revision. If possible, we'll try to figure out how to add that back. That was about 230,000 or 250.
Correct.
That was what you said the first step was. I think that's more doable. The harder part is the other part of the 2 million, breaking that down into about $1 million apiece for each of the nines. And so we all have been beating the bushes for grants, but grants don't seem to be out there for municipal golf courses. So we'll keep looking for those ways because it is not falling on deaf ears that we need to fix the golf course irrigation.
Right. The last budget estimate was 1.8 million. 230 of that was the pump station, so.
Okay.
Hey, can I ask just one
Sure.
more question? And because I wasn't on the council whenever this was decided, but can you briefly explain to me the dual membership that we now have with
Sure.
Pheasant Run and how that benefits us?
Well, it was something that we wanted to try for 1 year. It is, the only thing is it's the option. So it's the option for somebody that's an Enid resident that wants to play at both courses. It is a 20% discount if you were to pay both memberships. So it's not heavily discounted, and that was the one thing that I was really concerned about was we have a lot of members, we're approaching 200, and I wanted to make sure we didn't lose a lot of those. If anything, we would gain some. I'll tell you that right now, we don't have one person that's signed up for it. And I think that's because it's not heavily discounted.
So because they had a membership at one or the other places, they couldn't go play
Right.
both places?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So that's the thing is, people that wanted to play both courses, we maybe thought there would be a few more that would, or some that would want to do it, but so far we haven't had any. So
Okay, okay,
it was mainly just the option for the really avid golfer.
got it.
And we did that on a fiscal year basis?
So it's a 1-year trial run, and then we'll see if we want to try it again next year, which,
It was an effort to work what we thought, I think, could be favorable for us. It
Right.
hasn't hurt us.
It hasn't hurt us.
doesn't appear to have any impact, so we likely won't do that again,
probably not.
unless it's going to bear some fruit at some point for us.
Any more questions?
Anybody? All right.
Thank you very much. I
Michael.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the police funds. That is the Special Projects Fund, 911, and then, of course, Police Fund. And I will just run through the numbers quickly, show you the graphs. Special Projects and 911, there's not really much to say about those. They're pretty much the same every year. Special Projects is on page 82. This is where they receive their state and federal seizure monies. And you can see that the expenses are higher than the revenues, but that's just because they've had fund balance for several years. So we budget a little higher. That way they don't have to come back as a budget appropriation if there's one significant spend that they want to do at a time. So we just put pretty much the same dollar amount in the expenditures that they can spend if something pops up. The revenues are not known, so we just have a smaller amounts in for revenues. The virtual shooting simulation equipment is budgeted here, and that is a 5-year plan. And we also receive $20,000 a year from OMAG for that as a reimbursement. So that is budgeted in this area. And on 911 is on page 118. We are always struggling with revenues coming in lower when people don't have many landlines. The numbers just don't add up to what we receive on cell phones. So we're always looking. The transfer has been higher for fire and police to fund 911. Over the last couple of years, it kind of jumped, but we were trying to get our fund balance back up to be positive at the end of the year end for our audit purposes. So they are continuing to work on a funding solution for future, and there's not much other changes in this area. And then our police fund is on page 124. Pretty same operation-wise. We do have increase on the capital outlay side to where they have a larger deficit, and that is due to them saving up monies, their public safety money over several years to do their large project they plan on doing, phase 2 for their training facility. And that is what they have money in there for next year. So I will let Captain Miller come up and answer any questions unless you have anything left for me.
But before you sit down, let me ask you, going back, I sat on that 911 board, and it's like 50 cents per landline that's funded towards this, isn't it?
Per cell phone.
Was it $2?
Or,
There was an increase, but not near enough of.
And that was for cell phones. So landline used to be a higher amount. I'm thinking it was $2
Yeah,
for a
landline was a lot
landline.
higher, but there's very
few of them
of
now.
them left. And they're looking at and trying to increase the cell phones, but haven't gotten where it's gonna keep up right now with the amount of them. that
And you
they
say
are.
they, that's our legislature,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I said Commissioner Orr and I are both on the 911 commission, and it's been discussed at every meeting we've had this past year is getting legislation to pass and bring up on the cell phones, including the ones that they purchase, that you can get emergency calls on. And you can't even track those, as far as your throwaway phones at the stores. And that's where we're losing a lot of the finances from, because everybody's going away from home phones and going to these. And
Right.
legislation hasn't done anything for it.
Okay.
And the only other change for police in our contractual services group is the removal of the jail contract amount. And we had lower grants, therefore the revenue for the grants should be lowered also. But I'll let you step in.
Okay, right now, we're looking at phase 2 on our training center, which is Defensive Tactics Center. Right now, we're putting on our own academies twice a year. Whenever we have defensive tactics or any type of physical activity like that, we normally have to find a gym locally, borrow it, rent it, or whatever to be able to do that. Our academies continue to grow. We've outgrown our facility next door. We have a little area that we used to have. It may do 10 or 12. Our academies are growing to 16, 18. We actually have agencies around the state now who we're turning away because of
the good word that's out there that the officers that we're turning out from our academy is much higher in quality than what they're turning out at the state academy. We do a lot of hands-on training in our facilities. We have OHP has been helping with our defensive tactics training. We're in the process of getting our guys through that training too, so we can have our own defensive tactics trainers. Right now we have to pay other agencies to come in and help with that. To offset some of that is like Bartlesville has, from all the way over by Tulsa, sends their officers here to our academy. We let them have some spots in our academy for free if they let us use some of their instructors. So that's how we kind of swap areas like that. But this new Defensive Tactics Center right now, our last budget is like $1 million. When it first started, it was like 1.4, 1.5. We keep making changes. We're trying to get it down so it'll be in our fund balance. Excuse me. That's where our biggest area is in our budget that we're looking forward to having, and we're wanting to get that started right after probably the first of July is when we're actually wanting. We're currently waiting to have a flood plain survey done. We're working with architect to kind of get that done. And we requested that to be done by hopefully mid-June. So that's what we're working on there. So rest of our budget is we've increased some of our stuff that just due to the cost of everything going up. Other than that, our building over here, we've got $50,000 in there for flooring. Our building we remodeled in 2010. We've replaced the floor 3 times since then because we keep putting tile on and the floor moves and it keeps breaking up. Right now we've got 3 or 4 spots in our hallways that we have to keep up signs because the tile keeps breaking up. We've taken bids on, we've had people come in and look. We're looking at either stained concrete, the flooring, I don't know, it looks like the rubber flooring like they put in garages. And we've also looked at like a vinyl, floating vinyl. Looks like the best, right now, the best what we look at is probably going to be the stained concrete, which is what if you've been in our facility in the back, that's what that is. It looks real nice, it wears real nice, we keep it buffed. It does get a little bit slippery, but so does the tile right now, so we'd be careful when with moisture in there. But that was our other item in there. And then in our basement, this past year we had a leak, and we lost a lot of our files and stuff that's in. We have a storage unit, records department in our basement. We had a leak down there. I've been here for 37 years. For 37 years, we've used cardboard file boxes down there. Well, when the moisture that got down in there, run a lot of those. We've also put in for a different type of storage system that is actually up off the floor and is like we have in our actual upstairs storage unit. That's also part of the budget. I think about everything else on the budget is basically reoccurring for multiple years. So unless you have some other questions, that's all I've got.
Captain, how many police officers are we shorthanded?
As of, we have 8 on the list that we tested today. We had 8 passed. So with those 8, we're probably looking at between, if they all make it, on the books, we're probably looking at around 15 to 20.
Okay.
Like these that we just got on the books, it's actually, it'll be another year before they'll actually be able to be counted as minimum staffing. They'll be officers on our books, but actually working the street, will be a good 12 months before they'll be able to do that. We got some getting ready to graduate Thursday from this academy. After this academy, I think we've got either 6 or 7 in it. Those 6 or 7 still has 4 months of FTO training before they'll actually be able to sign and actually be officers. So even though we show right now that we're only 15 or 20 down, we're actually closer to 30 probably of officers working the streets.
Okay. So, like, if we were able to close that gap, instead of being 30 officers, if we suddenly found ourselves, we're only short by, 15 officers, where does that, how do we make that up, budget-wise? Like, if we have
Usually-
15 more officers to pay.
Usually
how's that-
overtime, because
Yeah.
overtime is paid at time and a half. And when they're down and guys are working overtime, I know from me personally,
Yeah,
that I made a good 25% more just by working overtime than my regular salary.
Is that
Well,
what you're
I'm-
asking, or are you asking? how
I'm
we
asking, like,
fund
if,
another-
instead of the city being shorthanded by 30 officers, say, in 9 months, we've hired more officers, and now we're only short by 15 officers, is the expenses of their salaries and everything, is that,
That's part of
Gonna be
the,
covered
my
in
understanding
this?
is they budget us at 100%. So they budget us 100 officers.
okay,
And a lot of that extra is taken up with the overtime, but they do budget us 100 officers. So if we do add 20 officers, that would already be in the budget.
okay. Good to know.
Can I go back to the training facility you were talking about a while ago?
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that with that, the additional instructors, when we have all of our own instructors, if we had a track, we could then be fully cleat certified to do cleat training, right?
The only thing we'll be short if, after that, and we get our instructors, I believe the only thing we'll be short is if your track you're talking is our driving track.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that would be the only thing. And currently, we're working with OT Autry. They're in a process of trying to get a 3-mile track built out in that land that they have. We've been helping them. They're actually kind of using us, and us being able to use that to stay in front of the bids on that, trying to get that. And if we can get that, we would be fully 100% in-house training with police academies.
Which then all those other communities could come in, stay in our hotels,
And
eat
that-
at our restaurants.
Yes, and that's actually what they're doing now, is like Woodward, they sent, last academy, they either had 3 or 4 officers here. They rented a bed and breakfast or one of those vacation rental homes. And that's what they rented for their officers to stay here. And it's 12 to 16 weeks. So currently, the ones that we have, they rent hotels right now, and they stay here. They could actually go to Durant and would be able to stay for free. But
Because they have barracks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But our training right now is so much better. According to some of these other agencies, they'd rather spend the extra money to know that they're getting a better trained officer than a lot of the cleat stuff is still doing online training, where all of ours is the instructors in the house in front of them, answering the questions and giving demos.
So I guess my thought process on that, and we're not gonna go into it tonight, but it just seems to me like if a lot of thought was put into that driving track, our fire department could use it also, I would think. And it just seems to me like there ought to be some state money or grant money or something out there that would help if we can tie that to emergency response time.
Yes.
And that might, I'm not
Yeah.
asking if you know that, but.
I do not. I know we've got a Stephen Puckett who
Yes,
I've been
sir.
working with on getting grants for equipment stuff. If I mention that to him, he'll start digging. So by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll be talking to him, and that's what he'll be looking for. So
Good.
we don't know. I think according to OT Autry, it's several $1 million. So that was something that we'd have to look at maybe long term, but they're looking at 3 miles. Law enforcement I think ours, we only need a mile and a half. I don't know what the fire department uses. What they're looking for 3 miles is they're also going to use it for their truck driving, which is another thing that they're using to stay ahead of the other VOTEX in the state.
Would this track be behind Autry?
Yes.
Okay.
Autry bought all that land back in there. And this would be, if I understand right, when I was sitting on some of the meetings, it would probably be built between the actual Autry and the city service center back in that area. They own all that land.
Okay.
Just seems like there's enough entities that we could make that happen. That doesn't seem like a huge step, so. But are y'all working together on that, what your needs will be, chief, or?
I had talked about this project with Autry about a year ago. Coincidentally, same time the police department started talking to them on a separate front. Since then, I mean, basically, a large concrete pad is would be the most beneficial to us, to be able to spray a lot of water without making a giant mess. As far as driving course goes, we can kind of adapt about anything the PD would need to use. So as far as use, we're very flexible. We don't have the strict requirements that they do. But we've been talking to Autry about improvements that we could use out there also, yes.
I just didn't know if we needed like an intersection also out there, you know, where you could stage accidents or something. I don't know.
Well, currently, in our academy, we have accident reconstruction in our academy. And right now, we do find we go out to intersections that aren't used very much, and we block it off. And we actually use city streets right now for our accident investigation. It'd be much safer if we had a place off the public street and traffic to be able to do that, especially if you're starting to have 20 and 30 officers out there who have never worked the street and don't really understand safety yet. So
I understand. Okay, all right, good. Any way we can help you on that, let me know.
Thank you. Any more questions?
One question.
All right.
On the mental health reimbursement, is that set there for, in case an officer needs some type of counseling due to a tragedy or anything, or what is that design? What is the use of that?
Is that one,
They come off of tickets, certain,
I know I know we do get some of that for tickets. Any ticket we write is, we get a very small percentage of that. We also get, if we do, which we haven't since the law changed, we used to do transports of mental health. Like if we took someone into emergency order of custody, normally we'd have to transport them to Western State Hospital, and they reimburse us for gas on that, and they'd pay that. Well, the state law changed where we no longer have to transport. If it's out further than 30 miles, we don't have to transport. So if it's not inside city limits, we don't transport. That's where a lot of that money was also coming from. As far as I know, the mental health, we haven't ever used anything in reference to officers' mental health in that. Okay. Most of our mental health would probably fall under a workman's comp type claim. If it's on, if
Or we offer focused benefits through
Yes.
HR for employees.
Yes.
I don't think that's related to employees. I see the revenue. Jennifer, I don't see where the expense goes,
Yeah,
but
that's the revenue, and that's what we got in for transportation. So
Yes.
it's been
So-
that way.
Yeah, we used to transport several times a week, but since they changed the law, I don't know if we've transported at all in the last year. So.
and that did relieve a burden because it takes, is it 2 officers?
Yes,
to go out there?
2 officers, and it's usually a 4-hour trip, minimum of 4 hours, depending on how long you have to stay at the facility. The last 3 years, Western State Hospital, which was Fort Supply where we normally had taken them, was always full. So we had actually transported as far as Altus, and with 2 officers taking them off the street. Right now, with our shortage, we would have to call people, well, last 3 years anyway, we have had, that was a lot of our overtime is our transporting of mental health. So, and we would only get reimbursed gas, not the man hours or anything, just fuel.
We also have one or two auxiliary police officers just for the transportation. Those were officers that had retired.
Used to.
We used to.
Yeah, we used to. Their jobs no longer give them enough time off to do that, so we haven't had that in a while either. So normally it was our guys, normally the younger guys who, with families, using it to supplement their income, really. But since the law changed, it's now up to the state to actually do those transports of anything outside 30 miles. The only place we have to transport is Bass, St. Mary's, and the Northwest Behavioral, which is up at 700 block of North Grand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the Event Center Fund, page 130. There is one change from the printed version that you received. We're moving $39,000 from the account 9151, and we're moving it to the 1110. That will be in the final version. It'll show when we bring it to you next Tuesday for approval.
So there's no net change to the budget?
No net change for the expense
It's moving
or the revenue. It's
amount
just
around.
moving from one account to another. So the two main components for our event center fund is hotel tax and our Stride Bank Center operations. And Jeff Bemis is here, the general manager from Oakview Group who runs that. So I'll just give a few items on numbers and he can come up and give his presentation and answer any of your questions. One item we do have that's fairly different is we have an upgrade for our HVAC, an EcoStructure. You'll see that in the 9151 line when you look at the detail. And we actually are receiving a small grant for $114,000 of that, $264,000 expense. So normally we don't have projects run through the fund. We just have maintenance and capital repairs that we do through that. But we do have a grant, so we were able to put that over here in Fund 60. So other than that, there's not a whole lot of change. This is where Oakview Group manages our centers over there. And so I will go ahead and let them come up. One other thing is hotel motel taxes slowly been going down for a couple of years. So that is a small decrease. Hopefully in the next few years it'll start coming back up, and I will let Jeff come up and talk to you now.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jeff Bemis, and I'm the General Manager at the Stride Bank Center. I have had this position for 10 months now, and with me today is Rob Houston from Visit Enid. My boss, Keller Taylor, who's the Regional Vice President with OVG, and he's here to support and answer any questions as well. So today we're going to talk about the highlights from FY23, what our projections are for the year, the economic impact that we have on the city, the FY24 budget overview, and then we'll talk about what is going to happen going forward, and then Rob will come up and give an update on Visit Enid. We'll have some questions. So since I've been here, we've had FY23 has been a pretty decent year. We've had some great events. We were selected to host the 75th Air Force Ball with Vance. We were also selected to host the Governor's Ball, pre-inaugural ball. So it was great to bring those folks in and have a great event there. We've also hosted 7 concerts that entertained the folks and sent everybody home happy. The mixed martial arts events that we have and the extreme bull riding are 2 events that continue to bring revenue to the building. In just over a week, we will have Little Big Town in the building, almost sold out. And they played here in 2014, and we've been working hard to get them back. Most of these events generate a positive income. And this year, we've picked up a couple major partners, new partners. Pope Distributing is now in the building with their Yingling beer. They've renamed the bar in the South Concourse to the Yingling Flight Deck, so we're happy to have those guys. And then the corporate sponsorship, our partnership with Casamigos Tequila. They'll be our premium tequila moving forward. And together, they're going to generate, over the next 6 years, approximately $60,000 in partnership revenue. So our FY23 budget, we were optimistic that we were going to be back to post-COVID or getting to a better world before COVID that we were in. And it didn't quite work out that way. We had some struggles. We had some underperforming shows. And booking was tough in the first few months since I've been here. It takes time. When I started in July, there was no momentum in the booking. We had a couple GMs that were helping us book shows, and they had a couple on the books, and those shows did okay. I was able to book a couple more shows in October, and unfortunately, they didn't perform up to our expectations budget-wise. But I'm happy to say in the second half of FY23, we've been able to pick up some good shows and make some positive revenue there. Those 3 shows, just to let you know, in October were Night Ranger, Kansas, and Petra, and that didn't meet our expectations, and unfortunately, a loss of nearly $100,000 on those shows. Those shows were selling in other markets. For some reason here in Enid, they just didn't ever pick up and sell tickets. We did a pretty good job at controlling our expenses. We haven't rehired a couple full-time positions, and our indirects have been below budget. Our utilities have increased by 24%, whether that's because of rate increases or, as you heard, we're going to do some work on our controllers to help us control our heating and air. This slide shows a comparison of some of our buildings in the area, and you can see our number there at 754.9, and the other buildings that are involved. Each of these buildings have their own, obviously unique size and unique scope of what they do. Shawnee, they are mainly equestrian event center. They rent stalls. They have rodeos and things like that. So their scope of what they do is a whole lot different. Most of these buildings, again, are in comparison in size to ours. So out of the 18 events we've had since I've been here, here's the economic impact for FY23. Those 18 events, we saw a $2.4 million plus economic impact on the city. And local taxes that were collected were $68,862. Those benefited not only the city, but companies like Chick-fil-A, Monopolies, and the Glow. Sorry. We want to make more money and book more shows, and we're going to do that. But not all the shows are always going to be profitable. So it's important to understand that even though we bring a show that may lose money, it will impact the city economically. A little bit small, but this is an example or a list of the shows that we've had since I've been here, and you can see how each of those impacted the economy and the local taxes. There you see the Night Ranger, Kansas, and Petra at times, low ticket sales. And Night Ranger 27,657 in gross, but it impacted the economy by $43,000 in some odd cents. So still money coming into the city.
Jeff, can I ask you a question on this slide?
Sure.
How do you guys, what are the factors that go into this economic impact? Because it doesn't follow a linear line here.
Right.
I would expect the Air Force Ball, for example, with 450 people, I'm guessing the majority of those are local. How does that generate $43,000 in economic impact when Night Ranger concert sitting right next to it attracts 542 and only generates $43,000 of economic impact. What factors are you guys using
I'm
there?
going to ask Rob, because he's the guru on the economic impact calculator, to explain that.
Basically, the economic impact calendar uses several data points that have been gathered over years of collections through Destinations International, which is the umbrella organization for tourism. There are several different ways that we could input numbers and get numbers spit out. What we do is a participant-based admission process. We find out the numbers, how many people attend a certain event, and then we have to make a few assumptions along the way. But that's the numbers. Those are the numbers that spit out. I mean, we're not just making anything up, but it's all based on specific data that has been gathered over many years, many destinations, not only in America but worldwide.
But do they make sense to you? I mean, like I said, the Air Force Ball, 450 people, I'm guessing the majority of those people were local. So how does that, I'm just curious, I'd love this, is it a program that's nationally recognized?
It is a program that is nationally recognized as the industry standard for establishing economic impact for events and communities. This, like I said, this is used all over the world as far as this specific calculator and the numbers that it spits out.
And part of those impacts, you think of economic impact in taxes or in hotel stays or people eating their food, but it's also the money we pay to our staff. That's money that's again taken out into the community when they spend their money at the grocery store and things like that. So it's taken into account all of those different items.
And it also figures in indirect economic benefit as well. So there's a direct category, there's also an indirect category, and that indirect category is those people that have come into the Air Force Ball, or maybe even those that attended from local locations or regional locations. They come here and that maybe they are eating some food before they go. That is all counted in. Programs that were printed for the Air Force Ball, they wouldn't have been printed unless the Air Force Ball was coming. So that's an indirect economic impact.
So the program you're using doesn't take into effect that the 75th Air Force Ball is a local event?
It does take that into effect. You enter basically how many you expected will be from out of town. Of those 450, how many of those do we anticipate being from out of town, and how many of those were local? And it kicks out a lot of that local and goes with the numbers on the people coming in from outside.
Thanks. Still doesn't make sense, but thank you.
We'll have a discussion sometime, and I can explain it much better with a little bit more detail in front of us.
We do appreciate Rob for managing this program, and we specifically got it about a year ago or so, right?
Yeah,
To help
been about a year.
look into this. And so, Rob, you take the inputs you get on how many people come and all that kind of thing, and this thing spits out what it spits out, so.
Now, obviously, the more data that we would have, the more accurate numbers we get, but there's sometimes where you just don't know. Jeff and his staff doesn't take into account, okay, you're here for the Air Force Ball, but what zip code did you come here from? I mean, if we could gather that data, we could make it a lot better. We have to make some assumptions, and it does account for those that are coming from out of town and also those that are local.
Looks to me like sporting events seem to be the lowest overhead and the most
Yeah.
profitable.
And they're longer events, they last two or 3 days, a couple of weekends in a row. We have the Oklahoma high school basketball, wrestling, and those tournaments and some of the other tournaments around the city. So, yeah, they do real well.
I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the visiting side.
Okay.
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 A little bit small, just kind of shows you what the impact is and how it breaks down. And we use the Mid-America Wrestling event, and then the Tracy Lawrence and Clay Walker show to talk about. They were both, the concert was on a Friday night, and the impact was on food and beverage, business services, and space rental. Now, Rob, we were talking about the space rental. It uses some different things to get those things, those numbers. The Mid-American National Wrestling was a 2-day event, and the impact was on retail, lodging, and food and beverage. So those were the big areas hit by those 2 samples. So coming up in 24, we're excited to come off with the first half of the year with the shows that you see there. There's 11 confirmed shows and 7 holds that we have moving forward from July through, March. Events that we're excited about. We've got the 10th anniversary of the Stride Bank Center. We've got Chris Young coming to town to celebrate with us. We're going to have the Tacos and Margarita Fest, so it'll be a great day of food and fun there. The Kite Flyers are coming into town again, so that'll be a great event with us. And then we've got some great holds I'm excited to tell you about when we hopefully confirm those up.
You're not even gonna tell us just one?
Too many people watching. I would love to. I get excited every time I do this.
It was just a joke.
No, I get you. I'll let you know, we've also confirmed a show, and I'll be working with the Chamber of Commerce to tie that in with Cherokee Strip celebrations. That Friday night, we'll have a show outside in our parking lot. So it'll be a great night of music, hopefully a beautiful night of weather too. So here's our budget overview for 24. Our direct incomes and then our ancillaries will get us at 1.6, almost 1.7. Our event operating expenses, we are expecting to be about $788,000. Then we'll have our net income from operating will be $873. And then from our sponsorships, and I hope this number is bigger. It's been a little tough getting sponsorships lately. Folks aren't digging in their pockets as deep as they used to, so we're still trying to fill the building up with ads. Will be about $350,000. So our total net operating income will be $1.2 million, and then our indirect expenses, salaries, and things like that will be 1.7, almost 1.8. So we're proposing our subsidy to be $548,479 for FY24.
And what do you guys, that's what we optimistically forecasted for this year.
Right.
So what makes you think this is gonna happen? Just out of curiosity.
A full calendar. I'm gonna do everything I can. And really, that's, for this year, that's been the downfall. We haven't been able to keep our calendar full. And we're still coming out of COVID. We're still, a lot of these tours are going to bigger cities. They're wanting more money. They're still, making back those 2 years of money that they didn't make during the pandemic. We are going to try to keep the calendar full. The big thing is we got to get people to buy tickets too. We have to have more events in our convention center, convention hall, and the ballroom and everything like that. So it falls on just making sure the calendar is full.
What about conferences?
Conferences as well, yeah. We've got to find, and working with Rob, we're going to do everything we can to find those conferences. Some of those folks, I think the pandemic, and we've had these discussions around the office, I think the pandemic has changed the way people do conferences. Whether it's virtual or they're doing a more regional way of doing things, or they're going to bigger cities, whatever it is they're doing, it is making it tougher for what we do to bring these things here, because they found better ways to do it.
Commissioner, 2 different conferences that I would normally have gone to, just outside of city government, they are still doing that on Zoom. Now, they'd like to say it's because of COVID and precautions. They're saving all the dollars from doing that. So the thought of going out and finding a whole bunch of conferences, I think businesses are struggling, and I think they are now trying to find other ways to do conferences. So it's a tough time. I do believe, and I know I've thought a lot about it. We've had a lot of conversations, but I don't think there's as much disposable income right now in the market. I think people are sitting there looking at their incomes and they're going, Well, maybe we don't go to the concert this time. So I think it's a tough time right now to have an event center. But I personally think that when I was Ward 6 Commissioner, that came down, if I remember correctly, the subsidy got down to about 263,000 or something. It was the lowest I'd ever seen it. But they just had it booked all the time. People were spending a lot of money. And then it just come to a screeching halt, right? But at 260,000, 300,000, I think at some point, we've got to consider that a net zero. Because I don't know that that thing will ever just be a moneymaker to us. We have to look at the lifestyle and what that allows us to bring to Enid. When we bring in CEOs from other companies, we drive them around, and we say, let me tell you what we do in here. There's some benefit. Because how many times have you heard people go, nothing to do in Enid? Well, you haven't looked real hard. So, we don't make money on our parks either, right? But we want that lifestyle. So I know it's high this year. I kind of had to back up a little bit also. I hope, and there's nothing you can do but just kind of hope, that our economy will kind of switch over the next couple of years to where people are making more money. They feel like they have more disposable income that they can spend. They'll start doing conferences different again. But for right now, I think we're just going to have to bite the bullet and keep our expenses down. You said electrical went up 24%. It did at my house too.
Yeah.
Snowstorms. We're all experiencing
the
that.
OG&E and charging us back for the snowstorms.
Exactly.
It's catching up with us.
So, Gerald and I were talking about that also. How do you pick the winners on the concerts? I don't know.
And sometime maybe we can sit down and, if anybody wants to come and talk, let's talk about that process. It's a tough, Keller and Gerald, when we go to think about a show, when I look at a show and I get a call, hey, you want to bring this concert in? It's not just something we just, hey, let's go, because it is, it's something we have to vet and look real hard at to make sure it's going to help us make money.
Well, and I'll also say this, that when the soccer complex opens, now while y'all don't manage that, all the tournaments will be coming in, people staying in our hotels again. Part of their subsidy comes from hotel motel tax. So, I guess my point is, I think good things are going to come, but it's going to take another year or so.
I think so.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For the concerts, the bands that we bring in, are they paid purely off of the ticket sales
Yes.
revenues?
Yeah, we have to make ticket sales.
So if we were to try to get a band, something in that would actually bring people in from Oklahoma City, Tulsa, are we gonna have to incentivize them with extra sales, like something that would actually sell the place out? Like, if we were to aim big and get
Well, let's
someone
take Chris Young, for
that-
example.
Yeah,
One of my first questions to the promoter is, where is he playing in this area? Now, he plays Dodge City the night after us.
yeah.
Because I don't want him playing in a casino. I don't want him playing in Newkirk or Concho or Tulsa and even Tulsa and Oklahoma City. I'm not sure that I worry about anymore. I used to, but if he's not playing in these areas, we're reaching into Oklahoma City. We're reaching into Stillwater. We're reaching into Woodward with marketing to try to get ticket sales, because it's the only place he's playing in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
In the next 6 months to a year. So, we do look at those things. We try to find shows that aren't going to be in the area. We compete with the casinos a lot.
Yeah.
They make it tough. They muddy the water when it comes to cost.
But for most of these concerts, do you have any way of determining? I mean, I assume the majority of tickets sold are to Enid residents, but
Well,
do we have any way to track how many outside even Garfield County?
we
tickets
do,
are sold?
short of hearing from people, and we do hear from people that say, hey, I drove up, actually, we had somebody for a little big town, I think it was, bought from southeast, way down deep in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And are coming up. We've heard from folks from Dallas, from Kansas City that are coming to different shows. So we do hear those. Do we have exact numbers? If we could do, if we tie in zip codes and stuff, we could figure that out.
Okay.
But we do know that we do get folks coming in from the surrounding areas. And, you know, the Beach Boys are coming to town, so there's a lot of people that want to see them, and they're coming in from around.
So that might be good to be able to capture that information of
Yeah.
the zip codes.
Okay.
Just for that very fact. I mean, of the 2,500 ticket sales, is that 500 people coming
Right.
in? Is that, are they coming in far enough out that they'll stay at our hotels? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there are some of that, but what is that number? I couldn't tell you
Okay.
off the top of my head. So we can figure out how to do that.
All right.
And I'd just like to say, being optimistic about this, I believe we're gonna see a upswing in revenue. Because let's not forget, we have two major industrial companies coming in. You know, one from Canada, Bryce Steel, and then we also have the windmill farm coming in out of Texas, Renew Energy. So when those companies come in, you know, we're gonna have to have places for them to live, and it's gonna generate income
Yep.
within our economy, because they're not only individuals, a lot of these are gonna be families. So when we have that increase in population, you know, being attractive as we're becoming, I do believe that that's gonna make a major impact overall for our whole economy. So if we continue on the path that we're on, we gotta also think positive.
Okay, agreed. And, you know, we have to have places like the Stride Bank Center or the soccer fields for the lifestyle, you know, to make people happy and have a great time. And I'll tell you, I stand at the back of the room and watch, you know, and talk to people as they leave from a lot of our shows. We had small comedian William Lee Martin a couple Saturdays ago. Place laughed for 90 minutes, and they all laughed happy. We didn't make a ton of money on the deal, but it made the people that were there very happy, so.
Gerald, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I know the building, the old Stride Bank Center is having some issues on the inside. Is that where this number is under item 9151 to 383?
No,
What is that?
that is capital items that you have, or that we have for you. $80,000, what do you use around those for the facility? Fixing doors?
Fixing doors, you know, whether replacing carpet type things. We bought, this last year, we bought some additional magnetometers for walkthroughs to help speed people coming in. We bought, and I'll talk about it in a minute, a new point of sale system. And we use those dollars to help do those things. We will.
We're talking 383,000?
No, 80,000.
No, I'm talking about the one under it, 383,000.
So 383.
Item 6049151.
That's for our regular repairs that we have. We have any sewer problems, we have water problems that actually our crews would go in and fix with our building facility maintenance employees.
That's what I'm asking, what?
264,000 of that is the HVAC.
Right.
118,000 is.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
We do have some issues over there that Morelli will talk about on Thursday. I think we have about 300,000 budgeted to
Where the walls have
fix the
deteriorated.
bricks, the caulking and the ceiling. Morelli could speak to that. We do have 300,000, and we need to make that investment in
But
conventional.
that's not in this budget.
No, it's not in this specific, it's in the capital budget.
Okay.
What's in this is what typically smaller capital items. We did put the HVAC in there because we got a Department of Energy grant for 114, which paid for almost, not quite half of it at 264. Typically over time, when things, I know some of those hollow core doors get broken at the end, we fix those things, sometimes carpet squares. We paid for that wall repair that we did. I'm gonna say that was around 15 grand or something, where there was some bubbling on the plaster in Convention Hall.
Yep.
It looks much, much better now. So
Yes.
the city worked with the Stride Center to fix that. So that's what that, we call that a smaller pot of money that we'll work on those kind of things. We don't do it.
You answered the question, that's all I
All right.
need.
I'll stop talking. I will jump in there on one other thing on just conferences. I think the mayor is right, that's a challenge. But I want to just correct that these guys really don't go out and get conferences. Rob does, he does his best to do it, but he can only do what he can do. What we need is everybody in town, and so I just use the example, the city managers have been here once already, they're coming in July. That's the whole state city manager, the mayor's conference has been here. The code enforcement folks have been here. The development people have been here. So we would love to see this facility, and I'm probably leaving out other conferences that have come, but that's our best source of getting conferences here, is people that are from here or have connections that are in state organizations or other organizations where they can bring those organizations here. And it happens, it's effective. I will tell you, when the city managers came, I guess it was 2 years ago in July, I think, they said nothing but good things about our town. So that's good PR too. And, you know, they take that, they don't live here. They take that back to where they live. So anyway, I just wanted to say that because I think that was important. And I know when Rob gets up and talks, the kite flyers, I know you did go out and work that one and get that one. So we appreciate that. And he can talk about his efforts on that.
So what's going to happen going forward? Obviously, we're going to need to book the building. We're going to need to have concerts, family shows, conferences, banquets, weddings, all of those type of events in the building. We're going to have to keep a full calendar. We've hired a new marketing manager recently, and she's from Enid, local young lady, very excited about being with us. We're going to work on remarketing, so to speak, the Stride Bank Center, letting people know that, hey, we're here. We need you to come be with us. Come let us entertain you. Come be part of what we do. Have your event with us. Community involvement. We want to get ARC's team more involved in the community so that people see us, ask us about the building, so we can talk about it. So hopefully you're going to see us out more in those areas. One of OVG's values is sustainability. We had our last MMA event, the number of aluminum bottles and cans that were left was crazy. So we're going to work on a recycling program, getting people to put those cans in a separate bag. We're going to work with the Enid SPCA to donate those cans to those folks and be part of theirs. We're going to do an adopt a pet program and things like that. Again, getting Stride Bank out in the eyes of the community. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a new point of sales. It's actually going in right now, system that it's Clover. It's a great system. It should help us keep track of our inventory better. Should speed the process of checking out. If any of you, when you come over to the building to an event, let me know how it works. We'll be watching it. We've got a basketball game Thursday night, and we'll see how it works. And then the real test will be Little Big Town. And we'll also be looking to add more revenue streams to help get toward the subsidy we're looking at. You know, Kona Ice is a partner with us, and we're bringing in Dippin' Dots, which is a huge seller in most buildings that are around. The folks love those things. We're going to look at possibly putting a third-party concessionaire in one of our concession stands, much like the golf course or those places, to bring in a little more revenue from those things. And serve something other than pretzels and hot dogs and hamburgers. Those are great, but maybe we can provide something else. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rob so he can go through his part, and we'll come back for questions.
And I want to add to a couple of questions that were thrown out at Jeff. I was scribbling notes for when it became my turn. Commissioner Roberts, you were asking about conferences, and that was well discussed. But I want to make one other point. We're doing everything we can to chase down conferences. And what Jenna runs into all the time is, yes, we know that Enid is there. Yes, we may have had a conference there 8 or 9 years ago. But we haven't had any conferences since pre-pandemic, and now that we're starting to have those, we want to go to the bigger cities where there's more activities for them to do. So we're hearing that a lot. We're hearing Enid's on our radar for 2026 or 2027. And that's great, and we're keeping those notes, and we will continue to be in contact with those folks and work with it. But that's another thing. The ones that are starting their conferences are not in the cycle that they were. That cycle stopped, and they're starting over, and they're starting with the bigger cities. So that's one thing that we're really running into. And then Commissioner Norwood, your talk about the new companies that are coming in. Why do conferences, or when conferences come here, when businesses come here, what are they looking for? They're looking for things like schools. and they're looking for quality of life, for things for their employees to do off hours. And we work closely with Charlene and ERDA because tourism has really become a lot of what economic development sells too. We're doing the same things. We might be just going after some different people along the way, but tourism and economic development are working hand in hand nowadays. And but you're exactly right. Those folks, when they relocated here, it's because they found that there's a lot of quality of life opportunities for their employees when they're here. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Our budget for FY24, if you can go to that, well, I guess I can do that. Go to the next slide here. Our bottom line is pretty much the same. Now, last year, we asked for a lot less from the city, but we had a lot more carryover due to COVID. Obviously, money that was budgeted, tourism took probably the hugest hit of any industry because of the pandemic. And so we did have quite a bit of carryover. This year, the bottom line is we're asking, our budget's going to be right about the same. We're only going to have about a $30,000 carryover this year. So our ask is a little bit higher than what we've had last year and the year before, but it's because our carryover is much less than what it was. And we'll notice in that slide, there's really very little discretionary income. A lot of what we're doing is allocated. It's going to cost us X amount to get this conference. For instance, the kite flyers. It's not Kites Over Enid, which we just had here a couple of weeks ago. This is the American Kite Flyers Association's national convention. We had them here in 2012. We had them again in 2015. We lost that bid in 2018. They go on a 3-year bid cycle. And we did not get that conference in 18, and then COVID hit. So they were pushed back. And so the next chance that we had to bid was for the 2023 conference. And we were able to acquire that conference, and it cost us a bid fee. And so we'll work and make that happen. But that's going to be about 150 people that's going to be here 6 to 7 nights. And they're coming from not only all over the country, but in some cases they'll be coming from places like France. We've had flyers from France. We've had flyers from Australia and New Zealand in those 2 previous conferences in 12 and 15. So really, really looking forward to that. That'll be in October. And I want to talk about one budget line item especially, and kind of explain to you a little bit about that. That incentives category is, we have over $85,000 budgeted just for that. Those are the bid fees that we need to acquire these different conferences. For instance, every year, we've had the World Series here since 2009. Every year it's $25,000 bid fee. Even though we're bidding and we got it for 2 more years, we're committed to $25,000 each year. But I ran those economic impact numbers, and last year's World Series brought in almost $1.1 million of economic impact and almost $50,000 in local taxes. Big event for our community, one of the largest events that we have all year long. We also had bid fees for the Region 2 baseball. That's this week. It starts on Thursday. We pay for the umpires, $6,500. The economic impact of that 4-day tournament, over $350,000. Soccer's going to be the same. Mayor Mason mentioned the soccer complex. It actually is open. It had a tournament last weekend, so the very first one. And we're working with Region 2. They have the soccer tournament here. We're working on trying to get national NJCAA tournaments. We lost the bid for 24 and 25, because 23 and 24, because we didn't have proof of concept. We weren't open yet. So they awarded 23 and 24 to Stryker Soccer Complex in Wichita, which is a marvelous facility. But they encouraged us to bid again in the next bid cycle. And so we're hoping 25 and 26 will have both men's and women's national championships come here. And that's under the potential events. We're looking at a $15,000 bid fee for the men and $15,000 for the women. So we're talking a $30,000 bid fee. And we estimated, that's that bottom line up there, about $453,000 in economic impact should we get those tournaments. I want to go back up to Connie Mack. Connie Mack costs us $7,000 each year. They have a couple of tournaments. One's a state tournament, not nearly as much economic impact, but still getting people to Enid. That regional tournament that's going to come up in June, 32 baseball teams. And I'm running $700,000 as an estimated economic impact and $30,000 in estimated local taxes. And I have to say estimated because we don't have the fields right now to support this tournament fully. To be able to do that, if we had the fields to bring every team in that tournament here, that economic impact was over $1.3 million. I had to cut it back because what the director for Connie Mack has to do is run some of his play-in games in other communities. He's got some in Edmond and he'll have some in Alva. And so not every team is going to make it to Enid. We'll have a lot of the play-in games as much as David Allen can handle, but he's made the comment to me, we need more baseball fields. So just something to put out there for you. I mentioned the Kite Flyers, $308,000 in economic impact. Oakwood Country Club has put in a bid for the NJCAA Division I Men's National Golf Tournament. We didn't get it this year. We were a little late to the table to get our bid in. And through no fault of Oakwood's, they found out after the bid process when the NJCAA reached out to them and said, hey, we'd like for you to bid, but we didn't get that one, but they only award on a one-year cycle. So the next opportunity is May of '25 is when the tournament would be. So the bid will have to go in next fiscal year. And we're looking at, and this is an approximate $10,000 bid fee based on some research that I did and where the tournament went this past year. And that's 150 golfers here for 5 days, as well as their coaches. Doesn't bring a lot of spectators, but at the same time, the golfers have to eat too and stay in our hotels and things. And that's about an $8,200 in local taxes and almost $160,000 in economic impact. And the other thing is that will be run during the morning. They'll be able to get most everybody through to where the members at Oakwood will still have the course available to them, for part of the week, part of the days, in that week, which is a big thing to the members. I know that they have tried to get some American Junior Golf Association tournaments here. Their requirements is they want the entire course completely closed for a week. The Oakwood membership doesn't want that. And I can't say that I blame them. So with that's kind of where we're at with incentives for this year. And your charge to us, ever since we've been an organization, is trying to bring more conferences, more sports to our city. What that's going to mean is we're going to have more bid fees that we're going to have to put out there should we acquire these tournaments. We're going to go after them, push them, but more bid fees will be coming. And so I'm just putting that out on the table. Mayor talked about how important it is to get some more youth sports facilities in. The next thing I'm hearing is, of course, baseball and softball fields. That's what everybody wants. And if there's some way that we can get some more softball and baseball fields built, I think we would just really go to town as far as youth events. Also a big field house that we could hold indoor, a lot of volleyball, a lot of basketball, those kinds of things. So that's what I have. Any questions?
And let's not forget the Little League football.
Oh, absolutely.
We definitely don't want to forget them. And I'd like to say, I don't know if we can, or I know there's a big baseball field out at Northern Oklahoma College. Because when I was a kid, my mother used to take me out there. And there was a nice swimming pool out there too when I was a little kid, when it was Phillips University. So the reason why I say this, we have Northern Oklahoma College, the city of Enid, and the Enid Public School Systems. Maybe there's something we can do to revitalize that baseball field and make use of it. Because that's a very nice, I mean, it was really nice at one time. I don't know, I'm just throwing something out there. I know we're looking at Crossland Park, you know, with EJRT. I'd fully 100% plus 10 agree with the mayor on that. But maybe it's something that we should take a look at as far as an additional baseball field to be able to, you know, bring those teams in, because we don't want to turn anyone away.
There's a lot of repair that needs to be done at Failing Field out there. And, you know, that's owned by NOC. So I would love to see some kind of something worked out to be able to use that, because yeah, the bones are there.
Yeah.
But it just needs to be fixed up quite a bit.
Does that have any seating? It's been a long time since.
Very little.
Used to.
Very little. Basically, there's some concrete slabs that serve as seats. You can take a lawn chair and either sit on those, or you just sit on the concrete. And that's only on it's only on the third base side. The first base side is basically your dugout, and then, you know, areas to warm up.
So I have two questions I have, and I was thinking about NOC out there. That couldn't be used on the Connie Mack tournament to bring in additional teams, or is that ship sailed?
Too much work needs to be done out there when you're talking about the Connie Mack tournament that we bring here is the last step to qualify for the Connie Mack World Series in New Mexico. So they have a certain standard, and they have used Connie Mack, or the Connie Mack has used the Failing Field in the past, and on like rain out situations where they just got to get some games made up. But he would rather not go out there in the condition that field is in right now.
Well, let me jump in there right now, because that's a very good point. The city has had some preliminary conversations about the possibility of that. With a joint effort between NOC, the public school system, and the city, I'm confident we can probably get something done. Now, I don't know whether that meets Connie Mack standards or not, but it would be a playable field for, so I think that's definitely something we're looking into, and we'll certainly bring back at some point in the relatively near future.
And then my other question, I want to switch back topics to the conferences.
Okay.
When you go out and you search and you talk, or your salesperson talks to a business about, or their association, bringing their conference here, we're looking at providing the facility, the food for them during their conference. And then do we also include in our package the hotel rates?
We put out an RFP to our hotels. We explain, here's the conference, here's the estimated attendance, and what kind of a room block rate can you give us? So that goes out to all of our, pretty much all of our hotels. We would rather them stay in the Glow, obviously, because it's right next to the conference center, but we also have great working relationships with all of our other hotels. We let everybody bid on that. We present those bids to the potential conference, and then they can choose which one they want to stay in.
And then a sub-question off of that, have we ever, just conferences I've been to, they always have great events at night for us to go to. And have we looked and tried to think about what we could put in a bid proposal? We're going to include your event that you're going to have, your conference. We're going to provide world-class food. We're going to, even if you put out a bid package for the hotels, right? They can pick whichever hotel. But maybe on Thursday night, we can have this set up for your group. And on
every single bid that we put out, Mayor, we do that. We list the different potential attractions that people could go to. They could hold an off-site event at Leonardo's or the Heritage Center. They could hold an off-site event at Enid Acts. We've offered a driving tour of our public art. We've got a lot of those things in our pocket, and when we send that bid packet out, we also do include that, because again, it's just like the sports. You know you're there from 9 to 5, whatever, and you're looking for that thing to do when you're not at your conference. And so we provide all of that information to them, and we will also help book that if that's what they would like us to do. We kind of serve as a concierge for that conference. They come to us, and we can, let's say, here's kind of what you want, and we'll do all the legwork for them.
I've put conferences together before. Man, it sure is helpful if that can just all be provided for you instead of the hours and hours on the telephone trying to set that all up.
And that's what Visit Enid is there for, and that's
Good.
what we're
Okay.
doing.
All right, thank you.
On events, we've talked a lot about the Glow, and I know,
Mm-hmm.
I think you do prioritize the Glow, particularly on events at the Stride Bank Center.
Absolutely.
Because it makes 0 sense to send them anywhere else. They can figure out where else to go, and they want to be there. I can tell you that's where the city managers were, that's where the community, people coming from out of town. So on those, I know we are directly send them to the Glow, because there's no reason to send them anywhere else.
Now, I will tell you, and I'll just be very honest with you, folks that are coming into the soccer complex, they are looking more at the hotels that are on the west side of town. We will provide them Glow information, and I've had this talk with the owner and the general manager of the Glow. It's like, there's this big tournament, and we didn't get a nibble. Well, they want to stay close to that complex. So that's just a location thing. Same type of thing we're talking about with Stride Bank Center and the Glow. They're right next to each other. It doesn't make any sense to really go anyplace else.
I know on these baseball tournaments, what I have heard from people, and Mr. Mayberry and others and you, they want to be downtown because that's the most convenient thing. In fact, aren't we putting 2 teams down there?
We're putting 2 teams there this year, and just for your information, this is the last year that the World Series will be a 10-team event. Next year it expands to 12. So even more economic impact that'll be coming to our community, because we'll have 2 more teams here.
I'll tell you one way the Globe can get them down there, lower the prices a little bit. Try to get them down there.
That's a discussion for the owner and the general manager.
Yeah.
I think they've tried to get more competitive. I
They
think in
have.
situations that are downtown, I'm just thinking of my own behavior, I'm thinking of other people's behavior. I'll pay more to stay where it's convenient, and I think that normally happens. You're right on stuff that's out at the soccer park, that's a different story, but, yeah.
Did I answer anything else?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one more thing for you.
Okay.
Hey, talk to us about the tourism conference, or whatever that is tomorrow, the Lieutenant Governor's gonna
This
be
is a
in
big
town.
week for us. This is National Travel and Tourism Week. So the U.S. Travel Association has done this. This is actually the 40th year that they have celebrated National Travel and Tourism Week. It's always the first full week of May. A couple of big events. Tomorrow, we are having the Lieutenant Governor's Conference of Travel and Tourism Summit. It'll be held in the Grand Ballroom of the Stride Bank Center. Lieutenant Governor will be here. We'll have a local panel discussion with Kelly Tompkins from Hive Appeal, Kyle Williams from Jiffy Trip and The One, and Leif Coldwater from Enid Acts. So we're going to get into how they got started doing what they're doing, and maybe show some tips for other communities so that they can take back home and say, hey, this is working here, maybe these will work for you as well. And then we have another gentleman coming in from Norman that is a storyteller, and he is able to kind of help communities weave their story and maybe tell it in a little better way than they've been doing it. I've heard him speak before. He's fabulous. And then the Lieutenant Governor will be here at 4 o'clock. He'll hold a town hall session followed by a reception. So he'll be here, 4 to 5:30 or 6 tomorrow. So that's tomorrow. And then Friday, put your scavenger hunt hats on, because we are working with the State Tourism Office to offer a trip-a-day giveaway. And they've been doing this starting on Sunday. They started in Tulsa, and they are going to 7 different cities across the state, 1 each day. Our day is Friday. So we will have a prize worth about $600 that's hidden somewhere in Enid. And we will be giving out clues through the state tourism social media pages and our social media pages. And the package includes a 2-night stay at the Glow, tickets to a show at Stride Bank Center, thanks to Jeff, and dinner passes and Heritage Center, Leonardo's, Enid Acts passes, a lot of very cool things for people to do in Enid. So 10 o'clock on Friday is the first clue. Look at our social media pages and maybe we'll see you there. I can hand you a prize.
Anything else?
Killer, do you not want to stand up and say anything? Sure. You started this facility, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, and
I did. Good evening, Keller Taylor with Oakview Group. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'll start off by saying thank you. You know, Oakview Group's been your facility management partner since 2009, even predating moving into the 2 facilities downtown. We're really proud of our partnership. I was telling Gerald earlier today that, you know, we don't have a city that supports us more than you guys do. So over the years, you know, I was personally here, and as Gerald alluded to, your first GM down at the facilities, and certainly have a lot of pride myself in the venues. And I can tell you, I'm really proud of our team. You know, Rob and his team at Visitina, as well as Jeff and the team. You know, we've got some of the staff over here too. I can tell you personally that they work a lot of hours down there, and they grind it out a lot of times a year, going from basketball to concerts and conventions as well. So I'm proud of what they've achieved, and I know the financial results will follow. I'm also proud of the impact we have on the community here. I think that you see the numbers from a very proven source that I stand behind, and we use in a lot of different markets across our 400 plus venues across North America. So I'm excited about the impact we make today, and we're very excited about the partnership continuing long term. So thank you for allowing me to be here and say a few words. Okay. Any questions for me or the team?
Don't think so. Thanks,
Okay.
Keller.
All
We
right,
appreciate it and call you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you need anything from me, have ideas, please reach out. We'll do what we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to fire. And basically, Chief is here and he will talk. One change from the printed document, the dollar amounts that are actually budgeted, there was an oversight on the listing, and we budgeted dollars for 80 firemen, and it should be just 79. So on that, the edited version that we will bring on Tuesday for approval, it will just have a smaller amount in the personnel, which in turn reduces the amount of the transfer. And that's the only change that we will have on that. And there's not a whole lot of changes. I'll let him talk about his capital outlay. He does have a surplus budgeted, and that has to do with the calculation of the transfer, and he is spending less in capital outlay because he spent so much in these last couple of years. And so I will go ahead on new trucks. So I'll let him come and
Thanks for
speak.
setting me up there, appreciate that. Good evening. Yes, we did cause a little bit of trouble last year. We had some significant need a repair for the roof on Station 1, the giant building across the street. And you guys were nice enough to help us out with that, and the roof got done just in time for the 3-inch rain that we got, and we had no leaks. So that's the first time in a few years that's happened. That was nice. But everybody likes to sleep in a dry bed, so that was very helpful. We also purchased a heavy rescue truck in the last fiscal year, and got that on order, and that came in a little bit over budget. Coming off a pandemic and equipment shortages and things like that, you know, the prices were just getting out of control. But by purchasing it in the time frame that we did save a little over $200,000 just from the timing of the purchase. So we got that done at a good time. But again, everything is moving slowly right now. It's going to take 2 years before we see that truck. It just takes a while to get those things built, so looking forward to that. Moving forward into this year, we didn't have any immediate needs for large vehicles, so we focused more on some of the structural stuff around the buildings, notification system, things like that. Going down through the items, might look a little bit strange, but account 1001 and 1002. Last year, we made a significant increase to our training budget, which was direly needed. We just haven't been focusing on that area like we should. We just didn't know how to allocate the money when we put it in the budget last year. So this adjustment to this year's budget doesn't change the amount in that category. It just shifts some of the dollars from one category to the next. The way OSU FST has been providing courses, we haven't been able to get as many of them done locally as we have in the past. And Autry has been going through some transitions, so we've been having to send our people all over the state and then some for the training. So the travel took up quite a bit of the training budget this year, so we shifted that money for next year. One of the other major changes, we added some money for infrastructure. We're working on our notification systems. It's called a Zetron system. That's what tones and lights the stations whenever we get calls. Right now, that system runs by a radio system, and that technology is outdated. So as we move forward, we're going to have to do a lot of work on that system, not just the actual equipment in the stations, but how that system communicates. So instead of through radio signal, we have the choice of doing it by internet or cellular. And cellular is just not as dependable, we're finding, as the fiber. So we're in the process of right now of getting fiber to all of our substations so that we can upgrade those notification system that equipment. So that's where a large increase comes in the utilities line item. A couple other little things. We're taking on the expense of the generator inspections that happens every year. That was done by Tech Services, I believe. It's moved to our budget. And then we've never had a planned furniture and mattress fund, basically. We've always just kind of squeezed pennies and used leftover dollars from other line items to cover those expenses. When you have 5 buildings and 20 to 24 people sleeping in buildings every night, it's probably best to have a plan for replacing mattresses and things like that. So we're trying to be a little bit more diligent in covering those areas. Vehicles, we're going to replace our command vehicle. It's a pickup this coming year. And that's going to help us out because we're running short on pool vehicles too. All that travel to training is hard to do when you don't have vehicles to send people in. So we'll move our current command vehicle over to our pool, and a new command vehicle will be a good addition to our frontline fleet. Then the largest capital projects that we have, we need a significant bathroom remodel at Station 1. Right now we have 2 showers that are 3 feet apart with no privacy. It's very 1970s layout. When people were used to locker room style showers. So we're going to work on making several different private showering areas for people to decon more often. We have 10 people that work in that building in the suppression division every 24/7. They just don't have a good way to get 10 people through the showers several times a day. Depends on what we're doing. It's not unusual to need to take a shower several times a day, so that needs to be done. Other than that, there's not a lot of changes to our budget. Do you have any questions?
Chief, when I first met you, you told me that within 3 years, you guys are gonna need a new ladder truck. Is that, can you just talk about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we probably have more than 3 years. But within the next 3 years, I think we really ought to settle on a plan on how to pay for that. Right now, we're projecting that truck will probably last another 7 years at best. It's just getting structurally deficient in a few areas and critical areas. We're able to maintain it at this point. We've done things to limit its use. It doesn't run hot as much as it used to, which means with lights and sirens. When we take it to a structure fire, all the other units respond, lights and sirens, and we send the ladder non-emergent to a lot of fire alarms and things like that, so that we don't beat it up quite so bad. That truck will cost, we're estimating right now, at about $2 million. 7 years from now, it'll be significantly more than that. The market right now has gone from an average annual increase of about 3% a year to about 7% a year. So that $2 million right now is going to be, 2.2, 2.4, 7 years from now. We have got a little bit of help with that. The TIF from the windmill facility out east of town, that TIF will create $500,000 to go towards that, so that'll help cover some of that money. But it's going to be important for us to start thinking about that $2 million expense that will be necessary in the next 5 to 7 years.
And you said that, if I remember correctly, you said that current vehicle is already well outlived its intended life service?
Yes, we have a great mechanics division. We're able to stay on top of a lot of our maintenance and upkeep on all of our vehicles. Standard life cycle for a fire truck is 15 years, and that truck was bought in 94, I believe it was. So we've gotten it this far thanks to our mechanics. Many of our trucks do go up to 20 years of service when it's at all possible. And then the best ones that we can keep, we keep in reserve. So we do stretch them pretty thin. But that truck has definitely paid its dues.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Anyone? Chief, before you sit down, tell us a little bit about your firefighters games that you had and that you'll be going to. I had a conflict. I saw it over there, but I couldn't go that night.
Understood.
But then I saw the pictures online. That might have been a more fun event, so.
Well, we had a good time and wish you could have been there. So one of my main goals when I got this job was to build relationships with the 11 fire departments that work around us in the rural areas. On occasion, we do call rural fire departments into the city limits even to help us with grass fires and sometimes structure fires if we are just overwhelmed with calls. And many times they ask for our assistance. So we go out in rural communities and help them with grass fires. And since we do have a lot of structure fire training, we do try to reach out quite a ways out into their communities anytime they have a building on fire. We're equipped and trained to handle interior structure attack, and we have the manpower to help them do that. So it's always been a understanding that fire departments, neighboring fire departments help each other out. But the working relationship hasn't really been there. So that divide between us has kind of caused some, unfortunate political separation over the years, things like that. So that was one of my goals when I took this job, was to mend those fences and make better neighbors. So I started going to the county safety meetings every month and working on those relationships. And those guys have welcomed me in, and we talk a lot about what we can do to provide better service to our community all the way through the county. Through those relationships and all that stuff, it's been interesting how much the teamwork has started to develop on fire scenes. It's been a few months ago, but out west there was a large industrial building that caught fire. We ended up with 5 different departments out there, and just because of the nature of our relationship, how it's changed, it was a pretty efficient, very effective fire, front working that fire. So it started to show itself. One of my guys is originally from Shawnee, and so he came to me with the idea, goes, hey, back home when I was a kid, I remember, we had these firefighter games, and maybe that would, kind of be a good relationship builder. So we talked about it, and it came down to it was just a great idea. So he was very instrumental in that. As a matter of fact, the equipment that we used, he drove down and picked up. Shawnee Fire Department let us use their stuff. I think it's Pottawatomie County, actually, that has that. And so we brought all their equipment up here and got those departments together, and we had a great time. And again, building those relationships. And you know, in the future, we hope to make that a bigger deal. This is our first trial run, so we try not to get in the middle of the first Friday business. But in the future, we hope to tie it into a fundraiser for local charities and get it up on Main Street where we can get a bigger crowd to support that and continue to work on those relationships.
Well, I've heard lots of good things from it, so we appreciate you taking the time and doing that, the relationship that you're building with the other community fire departments. So continue to do that.
Thank you.
That's
It's been my pleasure.
exciting, and I think it's going to be good for our community.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is where, if you have any questions about anything else in this section of the agenda that we would discuss before we move forward, anything that was discussed last Monday night or tonight. And then if no questions, then you can move on to the next section of the agenda.
Okay. Any questions?
Just one quick note, Jennifer, I don't know if you talked about the small minor change in the general fund parks department, where we want to have 2 head lifeguards and 1 less lifeguard.
Okay, right. I
It's-
have that
it's
on a budget log. I was just gonna bring
Sounds
on-
great. It's a
but
minor change. I'm not
It's
even
just
sure.
on the numbers of positions at the top of the page, so dollar amounts won't be changed or anything like that.
It's reflecting how we've operated for a few years now.
So what his changes that he's discussing for park department is they're moving 1 of the lifeguard positions to an actual head lifeguard, so there'll now be 2 head lifeguards, and then, but it's dollar amount wise, it's not really that big of a change, so we didn't make that change. But when you see the Tuesday night, you'll see that the position numbers have changed at the top of the page for parks.
Okay. That said, if there's, I don't think there's a need for a vote if we're not going to make any change on those topics. So I'm going to move on to item number 4. We're going to recess and convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. All the trustees are here of the Enid Municipal Authority. And item number 6, Enid Municipal Authority Special Meeting 6.1, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2023-2024 Enid Municipal Authority Financial Plan.
Okay, the only thing I have for this, unless you have questions or any discussions, is on the wastewater management, page 172. It's my understanding Commissioner Stallings requested the history for the Stover contract, and this slide shows the dollar amounts for that. FY15, the first year, is about 1.1 million, but that was only 10 months of the year. So actually, between that year and what we're proposing for the 1.557 for FY24, over those years has been almost a 25% increase, which is approximately 2.5% per year over the 9 years.
Yeah, and I would just jump in and say, Stover Group has managed the wastewater facilities for longer than that, about since 2012 or so. It's worked well for us at the moment, and so probably how we're operating now is how we think we probably should operate, at least for a little while longer. I know we're looking at Caw Lake, and that is a different kind of water treatment plant, but it's a water treatment plant. So anyway, we just want to make sure it's $1.5 million, 1.557, I think, is the number that's in the current budget book now. And there's a separate department that was created for that, I think, called, whatever we call it.
It's the wastewater management
Okay. Yeah,
department,
wastewater management.
Department 799 in EMA.
How many employees does he have out there?
I'm not sure I got a good answer for that. I know that Chris Lure, I think, is the Supervisor, I don't know. We'll have to get back with you on that.
Well, my only point of bringing it up is that we have good people that work for you in all the other places, and I know that they were brought in because the team that we had some difficulty getting that plant started. And we reached out to Stover, and he came in and got it working properly. But, you know, it's at least 10 years that they've been out there, and I'm satisfied that we could find people that would be our employees and do it some cheaper than that. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. If we could save some money on a $1.5 million or $1.6 million contract, is it worthwhile? I think it ought to be looked into. I know you had at least one employee that was running the sewer department when I first came on. It was, and he's gone, but he felt like that we could take it over. So I just want to bring it back up to the top and say it's worth looking at. And if you guys don't think it's a good idea, and the savings wouldn't be worth the heartache, I guess, or the difficulty, or the finding the right people, then, but it's an idea.
I think it's certainly a great idea to look at. I remember when I hired Lou, we actually had some discussions about this, but we believed that going forward, at least through Caw Lake, in my opinion, we need to get past opening the water treatment plant in Caw Lake, and certainly we're going to be operating a water treatment plant there, and then, so I'm going to say probably yes, sir. We will look at this, but I'm thinking probably that's a project for maybe a couple years down the road, but we will definitely take a look at that and keep that in mind.
Okay, thanks.
I appreciate Lou. David Hunter is fantastic, as you know, so he's on top of
That's why I'm
challenges.
convinced that he could make
Yes.
it work.
I am. So I think that answers the question on wastewater management. So if
Okay.
you would just turn the page and keep going. I guess we're to the point of whether we have any more questions in EMA, right?
So for the Enid Municipal Authority, if there's any discussions or
We talked a lot about
Question.
EMA on
Monday
whenever we
night,
met last.
on last Monday night, so, before we move forward.
Okay.
If
Any
not,
additional
then-
comments from anybody? Okay. That being said, we will adjourn. Convene is the Enid Economic Development Authority. All the trustees are present. Item 9, Enid Economic Development Authority Special Meeting. 9.1, discuss, take necessary action on the fiscal year 2023-2024 Enid Economic Development Authority Financial Plan.
Okay, our EEDA fund is on page 177, and the detail, of course, is on the following page, starts on the following page. All the way from FY 18 to FY 23, we've had a balanced budget in EEDA. There has been a fund balance built up, so this year we are not transferring funds from EMA. So that's gonna be a big part of the decrease in revenue. We're gonna use fund balance instead of actually transferring from EMA, which is the majority of what the revenue is. There's a small transfer from general fund, and those cover the sales tax rebates that have to be paid out of this fund. And since the sales tax is deposited to the general fund, those transfers have to come directly from the general fund. There's not much different other than that. We have a little bit of rent in here, and we have some economic development funding. I believe that is a fairly new OG&E support agreement. That is also a change in the revenue that we haven't had in the past. This is also where we have our TIF funding, and so whatever comes in as revenue is what we pay out. So,
And just quickly, the Roosevelt TIF must be getting close to the end. It has to do with the Roosevelt apartments. That was done back in, I don't know, about 2008 or so. TP&L is focused on 66th Street. Just to give you guys some clarity on that. ADM is what, we did a TIF to help them with the property tax increment to improve their facility out there. And the Takeon TIF, which is what we were referenced earlier with some funds for the ladder truck, which Commissioner Saragusa chaired, is it's getting ready to start. That project is getting ready to start. And so the money doesn't roll in for those projects until there are improvements, because what happens is the increment between the valuation in the future and what it is now is that increment that is taken and through this process is used for public and private improvements. So just to give you a quick update on that, the revenues that she's talking about that were in the fund balance are some of these TIF payments that have come in that come to the city. So fantastic. And I think Charlene's here to talk about
Yes.
a piece of that.
That's next. Charlene Flannery. So if you don't have any more questions, I'll go ahead and let her come give her presentation.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Charlene Flannery, the Executive Director of Enid Regional Development Alliance. And do I just press? There we go. So this is our team. Let's see. We have Debbie Moore, who is our current Operations Director. As you all know, she served as our interim director during the time that our staffing was low. We are a public-private organization that was formed in 1997. We work to attract, develop, and retain and encourage business and industry, quality job creation in Garfield County. Last year, you all were presented with this slide of the priorities for ERDA, the talent attraction, workforce development, business expansion, entrepreneurship, retail, aerospace, and aviation with site development. To highlight some of those things that were taking place this last year, there is a video here. I'm not sure, will that
I think Kent will play it for you.
Okay. Okay. And again, that was just to highlight some of the projects that we did this past year. Our funding sources, you can see here, are allocated by our partners, City of Enid, Garfield County Industrial Authority, the Northwest Oklahoma Alliance, our business and industry partners, and the loan and grant revenue that we receive. Last year, we received $800,000 from the city. We're requesting a flat budget again for this year. Business memberships came in at almost $67,000 last year. We did have a contract with the Northwest Oklahoma Alliance. That will be going away for this next fiscal year. They are now on their own, and we are no longer providing the back office support for that. We also have a contract with the Garfield County Industrial Authority that comes in, and our portion that we receive from the CDBG funds for the micro enterprise grant matching, and our RDBG funding, lease revenue that we have, and I think that had $1,500 there. For future funding that we have coming down the pipeline for the next fiscal year, we do have an industry partnership grant that is focused on aviation for $175,000 that we'll be receiving. And at some point through the legislator, we'll be receiving some ARPA funds that's specifically for industrial park, wastewater, and sewer projects. These are some of the priorities that we have focused on for this upcoming year. We have our housing study. ERDA had spent $45,000 on conducting a study. Many of you were present for that presentation at one of our meetings. We have Amy Hayes that's going to be coming and discussing those things with you, I believe, next week in more detail. We're going to continue a focus on our business retention and our expansion efforts here. And we will continue our retail with Ricky Hayes Retail Attractions. We have our Impact Partnership Grant that we're currently working on with Enid Public Schools, Chisholm Schools, and then our business and industry partners. We will continue to focus on those for recruitment efforts and to fulfill our workforce pipeline for any future projects that come down. And then we have our site development. We need to continue to looking at future sites for further development so that we continue our attraction efforts. I think some of these kind of got switched around. These are some additional areas of focus, and I just kind of wanted to elaborate on some of these. We want to do some capacity building through partnerships to support entrepreneurship and small business development growth here in Enid. One of our partners, or that we had participated with Autry on, we look forward to continuing that partnership and developing future programs to help support that. The other item is to create a strong business retention and expansion program to help support those businesses that have been here in Enid for a long time. We want to do what we can to help them expand, export, look into new markets, and continue creating jobs. Foster opportunity through the collaboration with other organizations. I want to give props to Rob with the Visit Enid and his team, our Enid First team, as well as the Elevate Enid. We haven't done any of that stuff yet. Many of you were familiar with the Elevate Enid groups that identified several different areas of concerns that the public wanted to address. There were some items that came out of that. We are looking forward to strategizing with those items that were identified and moving forward with some of those projects in the future. Create and further reach support that provides further benefit to Enid and the surrounding communities. I feel like there is a larger benefit to Enid when we reach out to others to help support them. Marketing campaign is one of the things that we would like to work on, telling our story, telling what Enid has to offer. I think sometimes we sit on that island and we don't realize, we think we're doing a good job, but there's a lot that people don't know. And so we want to be out there to tell them what we're doing here in Enid, all of these great projects that we have. And then just continued support for any hospital, medical, residency programs that may come down the pipeline. We want to be sure to support those as well. Last year you were presented the slide, the smaller portion is what was presented last year. The next item is what we're projecting for this next year using the flat budget. Just some minor differences. We have increased some of the industry recruitment area. We've reduced the administrative expenses and just moved a few other things around, as well as the housing study. We've increased some funding in that area as we move forward. And this quote I thought was kind of unique. Most great accomplishments were achieved by people who at first had no idea what they were doing. I bring this up because in my very short time of being here, 2 months, 28 days, boots on the ground, I've heard that there are a lot of leadership changes that are taking place in a lot of the boards, and a lot of the discussions are that there's some great projects out there that we're working on, and I just look forward to doing that. And I feel like I'm missing some slides in here, but anyway, I wanted to say thank you to the City of Enid and all of our business and industry members, Garfield County Industrial Authority, for your generous support of ERDA and economic development. I would entertain any questions. I will say I feel like I'm missing a couple of the slides or something that had turned in. I know we had some issues trying to get that in. So there's a couple of things that we're missing, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Well, after 3 hours, losing a couple of slides is not a bad thing.
Well, I feel like it was a lot, but
I'd like to say that Charlene has come to town and taken over the ERDA and is doing a great job, and we're happy to have you, so.
thank you very much.
See, I definitely want to speak on this. It's an incredible place. And what ERDA does for Enid it's incredible. I mean, I'm not saying that it's better than the university or college, but it offers things that colleges and universities don't offer. And it completes the educational sector, because everyone's not interested in going to college. A lot of our trades are dying, bricklayers and mason and individuals that are into construction. You see a lot of those trades dying out. Before I got here today, we were looking for some brick masons, and they're hard to find. You can find a lot of guys pouring concrete, but as far as that, it's pretty tough. It's very tough to find certain trades, even electricians. We were looking for electricians, remember, Ollie? And I'm gonna tell you, everyone's busy, so it's needed. And as far as my business and my partnership, we went to ERDA and we're getting ready to rewrite a new business plan because we want to expand our business. And I was blown away with what they had to offer. They're like, hey, we can help you, and this is how you do it. And I'm still reading and still studying some of the information that I received. And I looked at it, I said, I want to be a part of the economic development here in Enid. And I mean that, and that's what I intend on doing. So with Charlene and Debbie and the other ladies that are working in the office, I'm being educated, as far as economic development. And I'm enjoying this. So, if I can do it, the youth and those that are younger than me, man, what an opportunity they're going to have at such a young age. And like I said, I was blown away, and my business partner, he couldn't believe it. He said, man, I didn't know that all this was offered, all these services were offered in this small building. And I said, well, I did. I just never took the time to really look into it. So we got a tour. I believe it was Meredith Windfall. She gave us a tour, and there's a young man that's creating jerky, a new and upcoming company. And his father was in there, and we were tasting the jerky. And I was like, how old is this young man? He's 20 years old, him and his brother, twin brother. I was just blown away. There's many other things going on in there. And also the office spaces that they offer to where you can come in and set up and do business. And one of my cousins, she had a t-shirt shop, and they were very successful before they moved to Florida. So what I like about it is you can come in and utilize the facility to be able to start a business. I mean, it's incredible just to see all of that opportunity in such a small space. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and plus me being a part of the housing study. I mean, it all goes together, and I love it.
Thank you very much. And I want to say what Commissioner Norwood is referring to is our close partners, Autry, the Strait Center, and the incubator system that we have there. They have a good working crew. We work very closely with them to help support our small businesses that come in. If you have a dream, an idea of something that you would like to do here in Enid, we want to take you in. We want to show you all of the things that we have available to help you make that dream a reality. A couple of the slides that I guess that just had got missed. I did want to mention a couple of the major expansions that we have going on here. I know many of them have been announced, but we have, I'm just going to touch base on this. Our No Man's Land Food Company. They purchased a 72,000 square foot vacant building across the street from their original location here in Enid to help with their manufacturing. They've invested $5 million, and they've added 100 jobs. They turned around and renovated their old facility because they had already outgrown their new one. So the goal was to take it from a regional to a national company, and they have been successful in doing so. ERDA helped support that effort with their final payment of approximately $200,000 is what we supported just in this last fiscal year. Renew, the new manufacturing facility that is coming to Enid, sister company of our TP&L that's out here in the industrial park. They have an estimated $3.5 million investment here in Enid. 25 jobs to start and up to 75. Their new facility will be under construction on the west end of Enid near the Tyson plant. Again, they will remanufacture 7-megawatt gearboxes to support the wind industry. They also do design, engineering, and fabrication. Enid's location will be the first in the USA to remanufacture 7-megawatt gearboxes right here in Enid. So something to be proud of.
You forgot to add their $26 million building that they're putting up using local contractor.
Thank you. Had to turn the page. And thank you for that. In addition, we have Bryce Steel Manufacturing, the Canadian company that has acquired the old, is it Jeffco building? Still learning that. Again, this is a wonderful announcement for Enid. This is looking to be a $20 million investment. They're looking to start hiring 50 people to start, maybe up to 100 jobs is what we're looking at hiring in the third quarter. The president of Bryce Steel has already moved his family and some other management team, and there's other plans in the making. So again, these are all dollars that make huge economic impact here in Enid. In addition to, I did want to mention that we've also supported some small business through some micro grants, and I think to the tune of over $340,000. We've also applied on behalf of 3 companies for RDBG funding and financial support that's pending right now in the amount of $300,000. And for those of you that are aware, our staffing issues have been a little bit dormitory for the last 7 months. So I just wanted to say that Debbie, who's served as interim, has done a wonderful job. I think she deserves a lot of good credit for keeping things afloat when taking staffing from 4 full-time people down to just 1. She's also done a great job of helping onboard me on this process. Again, it's not new to economic development, but new to Enid's economic development. So I appreciate all of the support that many of you have already reached out and given. And we're looking forward to just working with everyone and making Enid even better. Any other questions?
Any questions? If not, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, any other questions on EEDA before we move forward on the agenda? Nope.
So I'll move to line 10 then. We'll adjourn we will adjourn to convene as the Enid Public Transportation Authority. All the trustees are here. Item number 12, Enid Public Transportation Authority Special Meeting, 12.1, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2023-2024 Enid Public Transportation Authority Financial Plan.
So this is just about EPTA, which you already went over on last Monday. So any questions or discussions for that would be here.
No questions? Okay. We'll adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item number 14, discuss, take necessary action on the fiscal year 2023-2024 City of Enid budget.
And this just goes back to the main section of the budget. If you had any other questions that popped up during the night, other than that, I have nothing further except we will see you Thursday night at 5 o'clock for our next special budget meeting. And the budget hearing is also that night. And we will be going over the green highlighted capital improvement program funds. So that would be the engineering goes over all the projects that are budgeted for, or projected to be budgeted for fiscal year 2024.
Morale marks this on his calendar every year. He really looks forward to this, so I'm looking forward to it, Morale.
It will be the Morale Show on Thursday night.
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. I'll move to item number 15, executive session. Item 15.1, consider convening into executive session at the recommendation of city attorney pursuant to 25.0.S.307B4 to discuss a pending claim concerning the construction of the Call Lake Pipeline, the attorney-client privilege to engage in confidential communication between the public body and its attorney, as disclosed, would seriously impair the ability of the public body to proceed with these matters into public interest and reconvene into special session to take any necessary action. I'll look for a motion.
Move to executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please cast your vote. Okay.